You need the lights on? Ma'am, night light. On. Not all. Only this.
So thank you all for coming back. So good, I didn't lose anybody. Maybe one or two.
person was saying, let me figure out. Check with him.
No, he came and he actually came and he left.
Sugar is also on there, yes.
So even scientifically, like after you have your food, or rather biologically, after you have your food, your brain has a tendency to slow down.
Yeah, it slows down
And
your-
it slows down your metabolism because it needs a lot of energy to do the metabolism. So so that's why you feel sleepy. So after food, that tendency to sleep is more. So this is that period now. So I have to work hard to keep you alive because of the biology involved.
No, that is what Japanese do now after food for 15 minutes.
Yeah,
they
not
take,
15 minutes, 5 minutes.
Yeah.
5 minutes, 10 minutes, they just go and take a nap.
Yeah.
Sit on the seat and then they'll take a nap on the seat. After that, even Koreans do that, by the way. In fact, we see our MP sitting and napping, but somebody who has not seen that.
Such a senior person is sleeping.
Oh, he's sleeping. In fact, in Korea, they switch off the lights.
Okay.
This after lunch, between maybe at 1 p.m. or something, we finish the lunch. Between 1 and 2 p.m., all the lights are switched off. No, people might be working, switching on their systems, working and all that, but the lights are switched off. And none of them, even if they are there at their desk, they are taking a nap. Entire building, I'm talking about 5 to 6 buildings in the campus, a huge campus. Every light is switched off. This is for about 15 to 20 minutes. I experienced that.
But you get a lot of energy of that.
Yeah, it rejuvenates you because it is a biological thing because your brain stops because of the metabolism that's happening. So you give that rest to your brain and then restart.
Power nap.
Power nap it's called. So that they've given a very nice name to that. Cat nap, power nap, you can call it
In Tirupur, entire city sleeps actually.
anything.
1 to 3.
1 to 3, okay.
Most of the field, most of the mills.
That's actually amazing. That's the importance.
But
we
only in
should-
Tirupur I have seen that.
No,
All mills.
no wonder Modi will implement this idea also. The entire country will sleep for cooking.
All shutters will be closed.
Yes.
Between 1 to
1 to
2 or
3.
3.
We used to have this Victorian hangover.
Uh-huh.
Earlier, if you remember, MG Road used to be closed from 1 to 4 or something.
Yes.
All shops used to be
All shops closed. I know. This has never happened. Exactly. Actually, Modi has done the opposite now. He's made it 24 hours.
Yes,
So let's start this session on that note. So it's about developing emotional quotient. So in the morning session, we appreciated the aspect of emotional intelligence itself. So if we can appreciate that much in terms of emotional intelligence, having emotional intelligence is one of the main ingredients to have in the course of your career, your life, then how do we develop it? So what are the aspects towards that? So there are various other aspects. So whatever I am touching upon may not be cast on stone or may not be the only things. There could be other things, but what is more important for us here is how can we relate with each one of us. I mean, do we have certain common attributes that we can really pinpoint and tell, yes, this is something that I need to have in order to develop my emotional intelligence. So that's what I'll be talking about. So why is EQ important? Now, of course, we spoke about that, we had a brief introduction on that, but let's go deeper. Let's see what else. And how should I inspire you now? Sitting here, all of you spending so much of your valuable time. Is this time going to add value when you go back to your work, go back to your job, go back to your systems, go back to your life? How am I going to adapt myself? What is the change that I'll bring in myself? So is what we are going to discuss over this session. The end of this session, I will also have an activity. So we'll make ourselves into group. It's a very small activity, interesting activity where you come and tell me, each group, one of them will be a representative, you will come and tell me and the others that how you feel given a situation, you will handle that using all these aspects of emotional quotient. Now, typically what we learn as children, as we are growing up, we are taught a lot of moral values. Right from our childhood, we are told what to eat, how to eat, cleanliness, and what to speak, what not to speak. So these are things that come as part and parcel for us in our growth and development. That's what I'm talking about here. As we grow, we go to schools, we learn moral values, discipline, fundamentals. When we go to college, we develop knowledge because we read books. Because by then, we are well versed at reading. We can articulate, we can comprehend whatever we read, we are able to digest and see the importance of it. So that's where we develop knowledge, by reading books. And then books and lecturers, professors, wise people give us knowledge. And once we join a job, we learn certain skills. So based on the knowledge that we gain through our academics, so you are put into certain practical aspects of how to implement those the knowledge that you have, and that is what you do in your job. Now, what we did not learn or were not taught was what we spoke about in the morning in the introductory session. So, did anybody come and tell us, hey, you should show empathy in this situation? You should, when a friend approaches you, how many times have we spent time in sitting with a friend, with a relative? Tell me, what are all the situations that you experienced today and how did you react to it? How did you handle it? Did you balance it or did you, waste your time in trying to do something which is not right? These things we rarely discuss. So now, how to handle emotions, what kind of personality I have to develop, what kind of behavior I have to show. These are certain things which are not explicitly learned, right? We don't read it in books. Our professors don't explicitly tell you this is how. They will teach you moral values. They'll teach you what is right and what is wrong. That we are able to easily differentiate. But we don't learn these things. Now, can it be taught? Now, when it comes to IQ, we all talk about it, right? It is genes. Like, you're born with that. You're intelligent because you're born with that. Yes, to a certain extent, yes. But over a period of time, you use that aspect of yours in learning, adding knowledge, and then implementing that, and that's how. So it comes natural. One way or the other, it is natural. So your genes help in developing that IQ, and then so same thing is with EQ. It need not be taught. It is part and parcel of your behavior. It is part and parcel of your natural ability to respond to situations. And all that you need to do is pinpoint and say what to do, what not to do in this situation, and that's it. Pay attention to what you're doing. So instead of taking 2 steps forward, telling that I know what I can do, I know where I come from, I know, you just take 2 steps back and think, am I truly aware of my situation? Am I truly aware of what the other person is talking about? Do I want to learn more about the other person? Why this happens is like we become keen observers rather than, because if you're sitting in a bus and you see the people coming in and going out, will you even think like why a certain person is doing certain thing in a certain way? You won't. You have your own business to do. So you will stop observing people. You don't have time for all that. Once you start doing these things, that's when you start relating to certain situations. So these are aspects that are trained to certain commandos in this people who do the security aspects. Like they were, when they stand next to the VIP, whoever they're serving. So their job, although he's a very big person and he's talking a lot of sense, he's doing a very great speech, their job is only to watch here and there everybody's movement, who's doing what, how they're doing, and they're paid more than just protecting, taking a gun and shooting the person, whoever is trying to attack, they are paid for that wisdom they have in trying to see what is happening, what is surrounding, and they are also taught not to become too emotional about the person who is attacking. So that is also a kind of emotional intelligence where you have to handle your own emotions in order to kill the other person and ensure that the same thing happens with soldiers. Soldiers, when they go to the war field, they are taught how not to cry for the other person who is trying to come and kill you. And that's why typically in army, the Jawans, when they hire the Jawans from the Singh, they typically try to hire people who are not very well qualified. In Indian army, that is the norm, because these people are mostly from rural areas, because they are taught how to follow, not how to think. For thinking, you have the major. If a army Jawan starts thinking in the battlefield, then you know there is chaos all over. So each one will start plotting his strategy, and then the hell breaks loose. So there's only one person who's thinking, who's sitting on the top there, and he's the other person. People are given guidance. So coming back to the context, so what I wanted to convey here is that EQ is not taught; it is developed by focusing on certain aspects of what you're doing. So what these aspects are, we'll come to that in the next slide. So in fact, I have quoted the same thing what I quoted initially in the introduction. Why is it important? Why is EQ important? Yeah, coming to what are these aspects. Now, first and very foremost aspect is reflection. Like I was talking about it even in the morning. Instead of taking 2 steps ahead, instead of pointing fingers, why don't you point back to yourself and see how much of your contribution is there in that situation, in the situation that you're trying to handle, in the situation that you're trying to deal with. Let's take an example. Like for example, there was a situation where there was the very tough project. So this was something to do with our S3 launch. Now, Samsung S3 model, that was the most successful model launched by Samsung. It beats even the S7 now, S7 Edge and the thing. Because that's when Samsung got recognized as a company which can make mobile phones. Otherwise, we were known for cameras. You know how Samsung came into mobile phones? So what Samsung did was, they were manufacturing cameras like Sony. They were following Sony at that time. When they started, they followed, when mobile was not there in the market, they were following Sony on televisions, on cameras and all that. So we had wonderful cameras. So when the mobile era came, what Samsung did was, very cleverly they took a camera and put it in the mobile. So they just wanted to create some change, some difference, because those days mobile gadgets had become very common. So how to make it uncommon in terms of not a device only to talk over thing. You can, today without a camera, anybody buys phones. Even a roadside guy will, if there is no camera, he'll say, no, I don't want this one, this is a bad phone. So today you can't imagine a phone. So Samsung brought that concept into the thing. So what I was hitting upon is this incident that happened when S3 launch should have happened, and the Americans were more involved in the project. In fact, it was their responsibility. The American team, the Samsung Research America, they had to develop this entire thing and commercialize within a short time. But it was not happening. All the VPs were worried. All the Korean VPs were worried. So what did they do? They stretched their arms to our VP here, the only corporate VP I was talking to you about in the morning, Dipesh. So they extended their arms. They said, can you help us? So what did we do? We snatched that. We snatched that opportunity. We ported all of our people there. The whole lot, all our engineers, including our partner engineers. We had partners, even Integra was our partner during that time. We ported all of them in the US, told them to sit there. Now the Americans, they themselves never used to work from beyond 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock. 9 to 5, that's where the issue was. Because the VPs, they wanted them to stretch. But Americans, they don't care. They don't stretch. They're done with their job, they're out. Because of that, things were getting delayed. So we ported, we put all of them there, and then the hell broke loose. In fact, I was at the receiving end because I was the HR at that point in time, and I was the business partner for that group. Every engineer was coming and complaining. The stories were, very saddening stories. Like, there was this guy who just got newly married. His wife has just come home, nobody is there to take care of him. His parents, they don't stay, in-laws, they don't stay. He brought his, and then he was told to go for 4 months to the US. Neighbors were taking care of his wife for 4 months. So these kind of situations, and they are coming back and telling this to me. Now I have to solve somebody's marriage problem. I have to solve somebody's child problem. I have to solve every personal problem was lying on my desk, and we had to do something about it. What to do? How to do? So what I did was I called all the managers, people who are sitting here, who are kind of interacting with the VPs in doing the porting business, sending people. Okay, you want supply? Take. The engineers will come. But nobody was thinking about what they're facing, what they're doing, how. So what I did was I just brought them all together, and I told them story by story by story what all is happening. Like there is an instance where when they do commercialization, I think you might all know, engineers would know that, you have to do this field testing. When you're doing field testing, for miles together you have to drive in the car. And when you're driving the car in the US, if you're driving on the street, you can't just get down anywhere and now they have to go to the washroom. They have to go to the toilet. So they have to take nature's break, but they can't do that. Because you can't stop anywhere, and then, like in India you can. So they had to wait for the gas stations for miles together and holding together, and also ensuring that you are setting the locks. These kind of situations were coming, and everybody is heartbroken. What is this? What are we put into, and all that. So the simple thing that we did was we called all the managers together, told this is the situation. So now let's look at it from the point of view of what we have to do as far as human aspects are concerned. So far managers were only concentrating on the work aspect. Now what about the human aspect? Very conveniently, very cleverly, what managers, the ultimate thing that they did, you are HR, right? You do that. We will take care of work. You handle that. I said, okay, I took up that challenge. I said, okay, I will do that. In fact, I was even told you go into that situation and deal it there, right there in the. So I said, no, that's not required. I'll figure out something. So we sat here. So what I did was each and every manager, like for example, there was one manager who was going there. He has to sit with the VPs, and then, but these managers used to get this leeway of taking a car on their own. The problems engineers were facing is late in the night, in the early morning, when they are done with their job at 2 a.m. No taxis will come, and that too when it is winter, when there is snowing. You call the taxi guy, he'll say get lost. He'll say, hey, take a hike, man. I don't care. I can't come. I can't risk my life. So then, how do you go? They used to sleep on the floor, on the sofas, anywhere they can get. So I told the managers, each one of you, you drive your car back and forth, put people into it. You are the drivers now. Because these people cannot drive their own car. So they started taking all the engineers along with them. And then we told the hotel guys, you have a shuttle, so can we use your shuttle? Because we are paying your hotel, we will ensure that all our engineers come into your hotel. So can, they said, oh yeah, I don't mind, 10 people staying in my hotel, I don't give a cab, I don't mind, take the shuttle. Like, so we started solving one after the other, the problem. Now after this whole thing happened, then end of the day, people have gone through all this, still that sinking feeling will be there. We did everything. Now Americans get the credit because the commercialization happened first there. Now they started blaming. They started, oh, you managers are bad, you people didn't take care of this. So that's when this reflection point came. That's why I gave this whole thing. So it is, instead of being emotional about it, so what we did was, one of the VPs, he knew the situation and he happened to give about $5,000 to $6,000 from his pocket. He just gave it like that because it was a huge success. This is my own thing. I'm so happy that you people, and he gave it. So what we didn't do was, we didn't take that and then buy some good pleasantries, some bags, some. Instead what we did was, we made a nice trophy with certain thing etched on it. Congratulations for a successful launch of S3 with your contribution. It was with us thing. And then there was a celebration of success. We put banners all over the office, and we ensured that everybody got to see it. They knew who are these people, and each of these people were given a T-shirt also with that written on that. These are the S3 launchers. So we did all this. Now, that's when engineers realized, if I had pointed fingers telling that Americans had to do, why did we do it? They all told the same thing. Why did we do it? They had to do. It was not our fault. They should have seen. But now, after getting that, they were so happy. They realized that if I take a step back and look at it from the point of view of, yes, I did their job, but what happened to the company was they launched S3, and what happened to me was I became a part of it. So even today, those engineers can relate to S3 and say, I was part of that. But so when we get into the, suppose if we had done the blame game, telling that they didn't do it, why should I do it? If our manager VPs here said, nothing doing, you people have that ownership, you do it, I don't care. That's when we would have lost in the first phase itself. So these are certain real-time examples that each one of you can come up with whenever it comes to this aspect. So somewhere down the line, we realize sometimes our reaction was not correct. If we do overreact or immediately react without thinking to the situation. And more often than not, we try to do damage control because we would have reacted, and after that, we are trying to solve that problem that we created. So reflection is to always be conscious about your emotional state while dealing with situation by paying attention to what you say, how you say, and when you say. So depending on the situation, think back, take a step backwards, and move on. Now, introspection. Often we do not usually pay heed to why a person reacted to a certain situation and how. We may tend to draw an inference objectively, but rarely we do it. So whenever we draw an inference, it is more of during an interaction, whenever you interact on a one-on-one basis or in a meeting or in a team meeting. So we do it, whatever we try to create in that situation, whether we are trying to tell something, whether we go with a singular approach that I need something, I want to get it at any cost in the course of this meeting, either through that one-on-one meeting or through the thing. However, if you try to look at it from the other person's point of view, suppose in this exchange, you give more importance to what the other person has to tell. When you actually put across things like you say first, you tell what you want to tell me first. In that process, what happens is when the other person is telling what is telling, whatever you wanted to tell in order to convince the other person, that will undergo a change. So that will undergo a change, and you will start shaping it up by knowing the other person's mind, shaping it up in such a way that you tell the right thing which will actually appeal to him rather than just telling what you wanted to tell. So looking at it in a more objective sense makes it more meaningful in a conversation, in a discussion, because these are things that we tend to look at it very trivially. Like we may not, oh, I'm busy. Now, I've seen many instances where managers come, okay, you have 5 minutes. So I want to discuss with you, you have 5 minutes because there's something important waiting for me there. I have to finish that you have. So there in that course, what happens is half your mind is engaged with what you want to do there when you're not listening to the other person. So let me give you an instance in this whole situation. There was this instance where one of our employee, his wife had some issues. So these things keep coming. HR people, things keep happening. So she happened to call every second person who's associated with this guy, telling about the marriage problems that they are having, the issues that they are having. Now every other person, first of all, every other person is getting to know their marriage issues, and second of all, it's creating a commotion. It's creating chaos in this setup. So what our head of HR did was, he said, hand over this to the business partner, which was me at that point in time. Now tell her we should not offend her. We should not tell her don't speak to anybody. We have no business with you. If we do that, then there are other repercussions of it. Instead, you tell her you have only one person to speak to, and that is this person who is an HR guy, who has all the time for you to listen to. So he has to, it's his job, he will do that. I had a horrid time. I mean, I was called every 2 hours, every 3 hours, and I was told all kinds of stories. That this guy was beating her up, this guy was doing this, doing that. Now in this entire course, the immediate thing that could have happened to me was like, straight away react to it and tell it's none of my business. But what I felt that I should do at that point in time is let me just listen to her. Let her drain out everything. Let me just listen to her. It came to a point that when I was driving my car, I'm going at around 10:30 to my office. She calls me up and she says, I want to speak to you right now. Okay, what happened? I'm committing suicide right now. I'm killing myself and I'm telling you before I kill you. So tomorrow you see my dead body in the house. Because all that she's spoken to me has made no dent. And her expectation was that I will go and literally take this guy off the job or do some harm to him or his manager. Her expectation was that. End of the day she wanted to see him in pain, that's all. And I cannot take a stand because I don't know who's right, who's wrong. That is none of my business. I should not be interfering at all. But all that I was doing was taking it in. I'll come to the next aspect of it. Taking it in. And at that point, imagine 10:45 I'm driving and I have to literally put my car beside. And I said, wait a sec. What did you say? He said, I'm killing myself. Right now I'm committing suicide. Tomorrow you'll see me in the papers. This, that, now. I said, okay, fine, go ahead. But just before you do that, just think about these things. Then tomorrow morning I will try to contact you again. I just spoke about few aspects like, do you think that this is the end of the road for you? Why don't you stop thinking about him and think about other things that you want to do? She was an Infoscience, she was working for Infosys. So few exchanges that happened. Then I said, then you can carry on. You think about this first, and then you go ahead and you see, tomorrow morning I will see whether you are there or not. In a very, I didn't get, in fact she wanted the shocking reaction. Oh my God, what happened? Oh, I will do this, I will do that. She didn't get that. So the next day morning she called me back again. She said, okay, now tell me what I should do. To get her to that point, it had to reach that suicide thing. So making people introspect, making people think before they act, before they take that ultimate step. Introspect, like it happens in every situation, right? Like you are trying to go to the exam and you know that subject is going to be tough and you have to write this exam at any cost, but then you will say, hey, I can't do it. Instead, introspect, see why you can't do it. What are the aspects that you're missing in this whole thing? This is about even attending to one of your job, whatever you're doing. So it's very important each time you reflect by taking 2 steps back and do introspection before taking that ultimate step. So remember these 2 things whenever there is a situation that comes in your hand. So whenever you feel you're offended, somebody has been a disadvantage for you, take 2 steps back and see whether your contribution is there in any way. And whenever you have to do certain interaction with somebody, don't look at it in terms of only from your point of view, look at it from the other's point of view. That's when the mutual objective. So introspection helps. Now last but not the least is absorption. How many of you believe that whenever you are faced in a situation where there is an auto driver who is going on the road, because I take this example of auto drivers because it's my favorite. The auto drivers have the best habits, very comic they are. So they do the damage and then they want to shout about it. So they come in between, they push you and then they'll bang you and they'll start fighting. So I'll give you a situation where there is an auto driver who he has made the mistake of hitting on to your vehicle, and you have this situation where you have to hear expletives from him, which you cannot give back. How do you handle it? Anybody, if you have faced this situation any point in time. Even when, suppose, let's say it's not happened in that form. Maybe when you are taking an auto rickshaw, he says, I will not drop you to the place that you're going. And then, or he will say, give me 20 rupees extra now, and you say you will not give. So you face that problem once, and how have you handled it? Anybody can?
I paid him
How
the
did
money.
you? Yeah,
I paid him the money.
you paid him the money. Why did you do that?
I want to reach my destination.
You want to reach the destination. That is one aspect of it. But why did you, get into that situation that you could have always told, no, I will not. Have given you this thing. You can walk off. What can he do?
That depends on how urgent it is. If I want to
Depends on
reach the
your need.
destination,
Like for example, the meter says 50 rupees. You give him 50 rupees and walk off. He can't do anything to you. He can't kill you for that. Why did you give that 20 rupees extra?
That's because we agreed to give.
No, sometimes it happens that when you getting down, he'll say extra 20 rupees.
Precisely 2 days back, I was in the same situation.
Okay.
I had to take an auto.
Okay.
I didn't have a choice at the time. That's the only auto.
Okay.
He said, I'll charge you 20 rupees more. I said, okay. So
Okay.
when I got down as a gentleman, I gave him the 20 rupees extra.
Right.
Oh.
So that's a very mutual agreement. But I'm talking about a situation where there has been situation where there is no mutual agreement.
No, I don't like to get into a situation when I feel embarrassed. I don't want to, get with him that kind of way.
Absolutely.
He says, there will be, I go and say, okay, he says, okay,
people
it
tend
is
to avoid
extra.
argument with auto drivers.
Or there is the other situation where you
Arguing
don't.
with the auto driver, you always have a handicap.
Handicap, exactly.
First thing is that.
Exactly. So if you have to argue with the auto
Even
driver,
suppose even auto guy hits me from back, my vehicle, I am handicapped because all others take sympathy towards me.
Absolutely.
Even though it's his mistake.
absolutely, because he can see he's emotionally intelligent, more emotionally intelligent compared to you. Ask me why. Because he knows his surroundings, he knows how to create commotion, he knows how to attack on your emotion because you have a target, now how do you overcome that with auto driver? Giving him back to him in terms of, there is another more, because what he's showing is aggression. So some people are very aggressive and reach their targets, and we actually hail such people, aggressive, and there's also an even more powerful thing compared to aggression. It is absorption. How do you absorb? Now, if I were to be a very sophisticated guy and I wear a nice suit or a nice dress and I get down from the auto, I don't want to be seen fighting with an auto driver, and I can't hear the expletives that he uses. So if you are able to absorb that shock from him, I'll give you an instance. It happened to me personally. So I was riding this bike of mine, and then there was a vehicle right in front of me. He applied sudden brakes. Now what can I do? I should also apply brakes. I applied brakes. And the auto driver, he had to literally hit me and avoid me, and he was almost toppling because of that, because he was coming very fast. So I was not too fast and I was able to handle it. He could not handle it. He was almost done, and then he was furious, he was frustrated. So he came next to me. I said, he blasted me. You don't know how to ride this, that, and all that. You have how? I said, not my mistake. And something like the way he told, you carry on. I also told, like in Kannada, Ogalo. I said, Neen Ogalo. That's all I did. And then the next thing that happened was, he literally blocked me. I was going, he blocked me. He came towards me, and I was standing on my back. Standing in the sense I was paying attention to him. If I am sitting, then he might feel more thing. I was holding my bike and I was about to. So I was wearing my sunglasses. First thing he did was, he was a very lean guy, but look at his aggression. Like all the onlookers, they think that I have done some grave mistake there. So he told, I'll punch on your face so that your glass breaks. You think you're a hero wearing all that and all that. And all that I did there was, I stood there and said, yes, please do that. I said, break. Hit me, break and all that. I'll get a rod, I'll get an iron rod, the next aggression. That I'll get an iron rod and I'll hit you. I said, I'm waiting here. You're free to do that. Go get an iron rod and hit me. Then there were two old people in the passenger seat. They came and they tried to pass. I said, no, it's okay. Let him do whatever he wants to do. Then I will take care. Then he started throwing up and this and that. He didn't do anything. I said, what fellow is, and he left. Now that's a power of absorption in demonstration, because end of the day he's showing aggression to emotionally handle me in order to put me on the receiving end, ensure that I give up and then I say I'm sorry and I take some money or whatever. Or even not that, he's going to win a moral battle against me. But because I stood there and I said, okay, I'm waiting for him because I know he won't do whatever he's telling me he will do. In some ways, they're not. Maybe at that point in time, my mindset was like that.
Don't
So-
push your luck too far.
Yes.
Don't push your luck too far.
I understand. I understand. Maybe there are some people who will even come and hit. But here, the situation was in my favor because I didn't do anything wrong, and he also knew about it. So as long as you're in the right side, in fact, I was also on the wrong side at one point in time because these are real situations which we see day in and day out. I'm just telling my experiences which worked, so it can work for you as well. So, like he said, don't push your luck too far. So there was a situation where I took a turn in a very wrong way. I mean, in a very ugly pattern because there are vehicles coming from the other end, and I happened to like go a little bit ahead and take a sudden turn, and then my car was right opposite to this two-wheeler. Usually two-wheelers go on the left, so I presume that they'll go on the left. He was right in front. I hit him with my car. He was coming with a lady sitting behind him. He fell, and the lady also fell. And my car was right there, and all that I did because it was completely in my direction. The whole crowd comes in very quickly. You know how it works. So I put my handbrakes, just went out, and then the first thing I did was I walked up to the lady because this guy who was riding, he was already up on his feet, and he is coming with full power, and he wants to come and have a fight with me and all that. I ignored him. I just walked past him and I went to that lady. I literally held that lady and put her on her foot. I asked, something wrong with you? How are you? She said, I'm okay, I'm fine, and all that, but I fell very badly, all that. So I said, then somebody from the crowd, yeah, no, who did that and all that? I said, I did it. My mistake. So leave me. So I took the lady, made her sit there. We gave her first aid and all that. Me and my wife, we told we'll take you to the hospital. Entire crowd was just spectators. They were just watching, and the guy was jumping. He came in and he wanted to become a hero on that day. Unfortunately, sir, ಇದೊಂದು ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಹೊಡೆದೋಗ್ಬಿಟ್ಟಿದೆ ನನಗೆ $500. Okay, sort. Thank you, sir. I'm not asking for money, sir. It's okay. There is a damage you did. So this is like, I could have easily been agitated by the person who's coming and saying, so if you just kind of absorb that situation, put it, then you can control it. You can emotionally control the situation there and the people around your situation. These are certain live examples as far as I'm concerned. But how many of you like Hollywood movies? All of you, I suppose. How many of you like Sylvester Stallone? 1, 2, 3. Very few people. Okay, I'm sure everybody likes. You're not. See? And then how many of you know Sylvester Stallone's story? His actual story about how he came into limelight. I will not go into that story. It's a too long a story. So, have you seen the movie Rocky?
Yes.
Rocky 1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
Five.
6. There is 6 also. So, what do you think what is the thread that connects to all these Rocky movies? If you have seen, how many of you have watched Rocky movie more than thrice? I have watched it around 15 times. And almost all the Rocky movies. Or even if you have watched once, what is the thread? Can you pick up a thread and tell me what each Rocky movie tells you?
His persistence, sir.
Persistence, perseverance. So these are some of the aspects that you see. One of the most important and categorical aspect is absorption. The power of absorption. The signature in each and every of the Rocky movies is Sylvester Stallone. He is not a very tall guy. He is a very handsome guy, but very well chiseled in terms of body tone and all that. But he's not huge like Schwarzenegger and all that. He's not a bodybuilder. He's actually a shorter guy compared to the Western people. And then he's a little bit thin on the thinner side also. If you see in each of the Rocky movies, the opponent is bigger and stronger than him, physically, in appearance and in this thing. So why is that he chose this kind of an opponent to stand? And then they show him most of the time. If he is making some noise.
That's okay.
Stop. So most most of the time, it so happens that he gets hit first. All the time he's getting hit first, and he's totally blown up, his face is all puffed up, and then he's bleeding. And you might think that, what this Rocky movie is all about. This guy is not a greatly skilled guy, the other guy is able to pound him like anything, and eventually he wins. The idea he's portraying there is, this guy was mentally strong. He came from a background where he had no professional support and trying to come into the mainstream and all that. How a rookie who has no such a thing can still win by being emotionally strong, by absorbing. So in one of these Rocky movies where there is this Russian guy who comes and they start fighting. He gets pounded. There were 6 rounds, 7 rounds, 8 rounds. 8th round, the Russian guy is going, he starts getting angry with this guy. He stops encouraging him, he gets angry. How is that you can't hit this guy? He's so weak, he's so small, you can just pound him back. He says, no, he's like a piece of iron, he says. So what Rocky is doing, that whole process, like, he's getting hit and all that, he's agitating the guy and emotionally draining him out. So this guy, despite having that superior power, that energy is thing, he's emotionally draining out because suddenly he feels that he's not able to defeat someone who's coming back each time. Although he's not attacking him enough, he's not putting him down enough, he's coming back each time. And because of that emotion, his physical strength is going up. Until you have that adrenaline rush, that's what this Japanese do, right? In the all this specially trained fighters. So they actually put all their thing into meditation. How to think so intense that you focus all your strength into your palms and then hit the guy so that they are destroyed in one stroke. So this is the aspect that you're trying to do, where he's absorbing that pain, emotional thing. Because if somebody hits hard, the first thing what happens, why do you hit them back? Because you feel bad that somebody hit you. But here it is a boxing match and you are trying to hit each other. That's all you are trying to do, and why should you get emotional about it? So each time he's coming back, he says, come on, hit me. And this guy is emotionally drained, and eventually when he is emotionally drained and his arms stop moving as fast as this thing, he hits him and he puts him down. So that's the power of absorption. The more you absorb in terms of situations, circumstances, like your boss might be in a bad mood and he will put you down on that day. Maybe his intention was not on you, it was on the job that should have been finished by that time. If you tend to react, if you tend to emotionally react, then you lose it on that day itself. Then you will never recover. Instead, if you absorb and then try to emotionally handle it, wherein you actually give the credit to the boss why he is reacting that way, it will work your way. So the power of absorption is much more powerful than only aggression. So if you balance with aggression and absorption, that's when you can get that real results. So that's what I'm talking about here. Absorption is a greater attribute that one can have in reaching a set goal in a right way by taking people along with you. It is the ability to digest adversities and bad situations, thereby deal with situations more effectively. So each time when you are unperturbed by the situation, by the people who are handling that, you are able to absorb and handle it better. It will help you in your EQ development. So we spoke about patience, perseverance, persistence, influence. So let's relate to one of our own examples in our walks of life. So any point in time where you lost your patience, any of you can come up, lost your patience and you would have felt that I wish I was patient enough, I could have handled the situation better. Quote your own example. So I don't want to keep taking examples from my side. I want you to also come up with something that you felt you could have done better. Any situation. It could have happened today, it could have happened yesterday, it could have happened while you were riding a bike, or when it could have happened while you were driving a car, or when it could have happened some other situation. Yeah.
Mostly happens with while driving only.
Okay. That's why I put that
pass
first.
through an old man or a
Mhm.
child.
Mhm.
Then later at a certain point of time I repented.
Did you face any situation like that?
Yes, I do.
So what happened there?
After that, after some time, I just think about it and say I should have been a little bit cautiously driving.
Mhm.
Then that interaction would have been much more pleasant.
Exactly. But did it affect you? I mean, did it affect you personally? Like, I
Yes.
mean, did any big harm happen because of that?
Not harm, but it's more of an emotional level,
Mhm.
like
Okay.
cursing each other,
Mhm.
scolding.
Yeah. So like this, there would have been situation. But have you ever faced any tragedy like that? Like, I wish I was patient. If it is too personal to you, you don't have to tell that. But if you can at least relate to that, where you could have avoided that situation, that circumstance, because if you had just held yourself up, it will make a good story for each one of us. Anything during your childhood? Nothing very significant.
I'm aware of a friend who happened to hit
Sure.
his son
Okay.
because that guy bunked school and went for some cricket match or something like that.
Mhm.
He lost his school and he actually hit him.
Mhm.
End result was he ended up breaking his tailbone.
Oh my God.
And I still remember getting this frantic call late in the night that
Mhm.
this is what's happened and we need to deal with him. We need a good orthopedician
Mhm.
and that kind of thing.
Mhm.
But that friend of mine repented for a very long time for having done that.
Okay.
He felt he could have always explained it out.
Absolutely. Yes.
It was just a flush and
Yes.
he had to do that. The intention was not there. It
Yes.
happened.
Yes.
One such thing which I couldn't
So, by this example itself, we can see that there are tragedies that are avoided by having patience. So, one such example which I wanted to give was during the Civil War in the U.S. when there was black versus white. So, I'm sure you might have seen this movie Abraham Lincoln. Any of you seen Abraham Lincoln? You seem to be watching a lot of Hollywood. I'm sorry if I'm highlighting.
Okay.
So, but these are all amazing movies. It was a class act. He got the third Oscar for that. The person was. So, in the whole movie is all about patience. Now, if you read about Abraham Lincoln, you will actually see what this man, his virtue was patience, tremendous patience. He's gone through bouts of depression each and every time. And before that civil rights movement happened, like he was in a situation where he had to face the civil war, he had to face so many obstacles. Even to become the president, it was multiple steps that he had to take. So each time he showed patience. He was just a farmer's son. He came through. So the best example for patience was when they were trying to pass this treaty, the final treaty, wherein Abraham Lincoln realized the only way to ensure that blacks and whites live together is by completely eradicating slavery. Initially, it would have been there is a union and there is a confederation. So, union people are the people who believe that we can, the southerners and northerners, we can live with our own rights. Like slavery, we will not do slavery. Slaves are free; they can do what they want to. I will take them out of slavery; they can do what they want to. But then once you put them out of slavery, like for example, you have a slave working with you, you put him out of slavery, what will you do next? Who is going to give you a job? They started facing that situation in the US. Once the blacks went, wherever they went, the whites were blocking their way. If some black comes, they will walk out. Nobody gives them a job. So how do you handle such a situation? When Lincoln came to know about this, he said, let's completely take away slavery. And this kind of agitated the movement, and the Confederation became more aggressive, and they started attacking more, and then there were a lot of killings. Every day he has to face a situation sitting in his chamber, hearing about 60,000 people killed, 100,000 people killed, 50, every day, and it was a misery for him. And he was responsible for all of that. Everybody were pointing fingers at him. So, but he was patient enough. He knew that there will be a stage where people will realize that whatever he is proposing will work for them as much as it will work for others. Like, so that's when the union and the like people who went out of union and joined the confederation, they started coming back. The reason for that was very simple. What he did was, he put all the people who were slaves, he didn't actually advocate them. They themselves came, they said, we will fight with the whites because you are fighting for our rights. And why don't we join the army and fight along with you? This happened without Lincoln's plan. He didn't have a plan for this. He was just patiently waiting that something will turn around. And it turned around in this direction. And once it started playing this way, it went to a stage where he started winning these battles, the small battles, and then finally they were able to pass this law on India. So the level of patience he had to go through, because his wife had lost 2 kids, they had and he was in that depression. He had the depression of people dying every day. His son was going into the army, he wanted to join the army, and his wife didn't want that. He was going through that depression. So all this emotional baggage he was carrying throughout his journey of trying to get those civil rights. And then ultimately, because of that patience, he achieved what? That's why he is known even till today. Same thing happened with Mahatma Gandhi on the non-violent thing. There were so many obstacles, they start flipping over it. So that's the virtue of patience. So in many ways, then not we spoke about it through story, but the most important virtue that you achieve out of patience is trust. You build trust. By showing patience, by absorbing things, you start building trust, because people will relate to you in a sense that you are not a person whom they can come and then approach you and then get a reaction immediately. They will approach you as a person who can actually listen to you and take a step back, start thinking and doing things. So you will develop trust. Trust is a very important aspect in influencing others. Then persistence and perseverance. There's a very nice anecdote kind of a story here. So this was an experiment that was done. So there was this shark that they used for this experiment. So what they did was, they put a glass barricade into a big aquarium, put a shark on one side and put a small fish on the other side. So the shark can see the fish right in front of it, and then it used to to eat the fish, but then it used to hit the glass and then come back. Each time it tried, it kept hitting the glass and coming back, hitting the glass and coming back. So this kept happening over a period of time. So at some point in time, the shark stopped moving towards the fish, where the glass was. It kind of swam back to the. So that's when what they did was, they removed the glass. They completely removed the glass, and then they left the fish there. The shark never attacked the fish. So it kind of lost its own instincts. In fact, shark has that very good instinct of going and attacking its prey. It lost. So that's the virtue of perseverance. So if you stop seeking for something just because you face an obstacle, it might be an obstacle which is there temporarily, but it will go away. You have to be persistent in your approach in trying to go for your goal. If you retract at some point in time, the goal is right in front of you, but still you will not get it. So that's where this whole thing will turn against you. So that's why persistence and perseverance is a very important aspect of taking one step towards your goal every time, each day, by not looking back, or not tracing back, not thinking that there is an obstacle, I cannot cross this barrier. So last but not the least is influence. So before I go into this particular aspect, so I want to relate to one of you or any of you, like who has borne an influence, tremendous influence on you in your life, maybe your father, your grandfather, and if you think so, then why?
It's not always one person, several persons.
There could be many people, but then there could be one person who's really, been a major influence in your life for whatever reason, maybe during your academics or during your next part of your growth, something that has really made you feel that okay, this is my destination, this is where I have to go? Somebody who has influenced you very strongly that way. If
Yeah,
you-
actually our professors.
Professors, yes. So anybody that you can think of who's actually because of something that he said you did went about doing something.
Actually, I used to have two professors. I mean, because of them, yeah, we did. And I was actually before changing my initial part of my career was as a teacher. I was working in a college.
Wonderful,
I
yeah.
taught about maybe
Mhm.
almost 12 years as in a college.
Mhm.
It was all because of we actually developed the interest in a particular subject.
Mhm. Right. So definitely there would have been somebody who really inspired you because of which you would have been. So I'm sure there will be your parents, grandparents, brothers, sisters, somebody who has influenced you tremendously. Now, the aspect that I want to bring about is when that kind of an influence happens at a personal level, we are so obsessed with it. We are so much inspired in the sense there is a spark. Why? Why is it so? It could be mostly because we believe in that person. Somehow they are connected to you, they are related to you, they are your well-wishers. So the same aspect somehow overturns when it comes to a corporate environment. In certain situations, I'm not telling all situations are like that. It overturns for the reason being, I think once we do the role play, we will we will kind of relate to that situation. It overturns because somewhere down the line, when we come into the office, we don't relate to the people that whom we are working with. So that's why I did that survey on professional connection. So how connected you are. So let me take an example. Like I had mentioned in my survey, how many of you actually, when you take a leave, you tell your manager exactly what it is, or you tell exactly what it is? How many of you tell them? Most of you tell what it is. I'm sure that survey results are also very good. So, how many of you? I don't want you to raise your hands. You can just say yes or no. So, how many of you have lied when you have to take a leave? Yes, to some extent, yes. So, why would we have done so?
But there are few things which we can't able to, there are too many personal things which we can't able to, like, we don't want to share with our subordinates or superiors. Where, for example, my mother is not well and she's admitted and this is the situation. I don't want to tell that to my.
Why? Why do you think so? Suppose you tell, what is the consequence of that? What do you think will be the consequence?
No, we don't completely hide the things, but we say that, okay, my mother is hospitalized, so I won't leave. That kind of thing. But we don't explain complete things.
Purpose is to get a leave.
He hit the nail on the head. At the end of the day, my objective is to get the leave. But how many of us really think that, even in that process of getting that leave, we can establish an emotional attachment. We can establish trust. We can do influencing. The act of influence starts with that aspect. So whenever I personally do it, I don't know, some of my friends actually laugh when I tell them I do it. I explain them what exactly is the situation, where I am, what I am doing, why I am doing this. What it builds is, next time when you are taking a leave, your manager will not ask you too many questions. Because he knows your situation. He knows who's behind you, who's your family member, how many family members you have, who's sick, what is the thing. So somebody might have cancer at home, somebody might be undergoing dialysis at home. By hiding it, you are only making your problem complex, more complex, where you are kind of detaching from your managers. You're not actually giving that leeway of him to trust you. So with your parent, suppose you have to tell the same news to your elder brother or younger brother who might be 7 seas away, who may not be able to immediately do anything about it. Would you hide it? You will not. Why? You're emotionally connected, right? The same emotional connection.
I don't think you will hide these kind of information. Suppose you have to go for an ODI, then you might not tell him that you want to go for the ODI. That time you will probably create
So,
some sickness or something.
this was an extreme situation I took, but there could also be a situation where you have some guests at home and you're all going for suddenly you have to take them for
Some outing.
some outing. So more often than not, we tend to hide
Let
such
me
things.
explain that. It could
Yeah.
be some situation where you're forced to go, but you may think that your boss or whoever you report to might think it's too trivial a reason to take leave.
Absolutely, it could be too trivial or it could not be very important.
Or he might shoot it down because the.
What looks important to you may not look important to your
Important to
manager.
him.
That's
So-
when you lie.
Correct. That's a presumption through which we lie, right? So the ability to influence start at that point is what I was actually hinting at, because in that situation maybe it was very important to you and how you articulate it, how you speak. Because if you start with the premise of okay, the boss is not going to accept this, you will actually tell certain things which are not the right thing to tell. But if you can articulate it in such a way that the boss, because he himself would have faced the same situation at home. I'll give you an example. It is much better when we relate to examples. So there was the situation wherein one of the engineers, he was shifting his home. All his stuff is outside and it's about to rain, it's cloudy like this. And then the manager calls him, this is on a weekend, on a Saturday, he calls him, he says, yeah, it is a very important issue, it's become a big issue here, people are jumping on me. You are the person who had solved this bug, so you have to come and fix it, because nobody else knows, so you have to work. So he told that my entire stuff is outside, all my vessels, everything, it might rain any time, so I cannot come, I cannot. Then there was a big argument, this and that, there was frustration. So many things happened at that point in time. So finally, that guy came at a later point and he did something. Then this issue came to me. So we figured out what is the problem. We had to now patch up between the manager and the engineer. So the thing we told to the engineer first thing was, what did you tell to the man? He said, I cannot come. Engineer said, I cannot come. So immediately manager got agitated. So instead, if I told, if he had told, I need exactly 2 hours. Because 1 hour for traveling, 1 hour for putting this somewhere, or at least telling a friend to handle this until I come. So that, so all that it needed was 2 hours. In fact, engineer agreed. He said, yeah, that was my mistake. I should have at least taken those 2 hours. I asked him, would you be able to solve that problem within that 1 hour? And yes, I could have told my friend. He would have come and taken care of that. And the problem would have got solved. Now the manager's issue was this guy deliberately, he said I will not come, and because of that frustration, that manager blasted him. He went at 6 o'clock instead of 5 o'clock, he could have still gone at 5 o'clock. So these are the barriers that get created. The first instance, if you are able to make certain provision within your mind, yes, it is possible, or tell the truth, because he told only the half truth. He said, I was in a situation where I cannot come, so you will not understand that. These were the words used. So these are certain situations and circumstances where you will come across, where if you have to handle, it's better to use that as an opportunity to influence. Whether you are taking a leave, whether you want to stay over for a longer time, tell the truth, get the connect going, influence your manager, it will work better. I know it is very difficult to see it in a practical situation like that, but the more you attempt at that, because I have seen that it has repeatedly, consistently been successful whenever I personally did that, or I recommended somebody else to do that. Whenever they did that, suddenly the equation had changed. So it helps.
Basically, the trust. Once the trust is there, then I can
Absolutely.
communicate openly. And once you are able to communicate openly, there is a communication barrier.
Exactly. So
That can be found at even the manager's side. Manager actually may not have given the opportunity to the other person to, to develop that trust.
Exactly. So what I cannot do is I cannot change the behavior of the manager. I cannot change his personality. But what I can do is I can influence his personality. I can make him trust me. So that aspect you always have in your hand. So typically we say, right, whatever attitude and behaviors we carry are certain things that we are born with, because it has happened through our upbringing, it has happened through our culture. So all that I can change in one instance or in a thing. So what I can do is I can influence by at least letting the manager trust by being open, by being transparent. So sometimes even managers learn from the subordinates, and it happens vice versa also, because it's not always the manager's job to be open, be transparent. Typically we say, right, managing the manager is a more important task than managing subordinates, because you can, if you are able to manage upwards, that's when you grow much faster than the others who cannot manage upwards. They might be able to do an excellent job, a brilliant job, so that's where EQ counts. So you might be able to do, if you cannot manage upwards, it might actually become a barrier. You are not able to overcome your own hurdles. So,
This reminds me of one joke which I read actually. So one boss comes to employee, do you believe in reincarnation? He says no. Why? The grandfather whom you took for funeral leave, no? He has come to see you.
yeah, so certain things like this can also happen which can embarrass you. Yeah, I've seen this thing, like some of the managers telling his grandmother died twice. So those kind of instances happen. So that is like one level is total immaturity, one level is in between, and
But
the
I
other
don't
is
think our industry has grown beyond this.
beyond this.
At least IT and all that nowadays.
Yeah, I gave a very trivial example.
And people
but
take the right, and also managers do expect, I mean,
exactly,
they give that freedom of.
exactly. But you'll be very surprised.
But I'm sure this used to be the case sometime back, and in a typical bureaucratic
Organization. But you'll be surprised.
People are asking a leave.
That's exactly. But you'll be surprised whenever the situation changes. Because I can relate to those instances wherein I should not quote it, but I'm doing that. There was an instance where during commercialization phase, we had to send engineers constantly to Korea. And going to Korea was like, hell. People used to hide under the desk so that the guy who makes a visa doesn't find them, and then they say so he's not there and somebody else is sent. So it used to be so bad because that strain, the stress, and people just want to somehow that moment escape and then walk away. And in a larger context, so it may not happen on a one-to-one basis more often, but in a larger context when the stress becomes too much to handle, they find ways and means of saying, and then that breaks, that keeps distancing a manager and the subordinate to a very large extent, and it gets very difficult to bring it back. The trust is lost once, regaining it becomes a Herculean task.
No, but Nitin, I have one more angle to it.
Sure.
Once you develop trust with anybody, then there is a possibility people just will start misusing trust.
Yeah, that can
That is
also
very,
happen.
very commonly seen.
Yes,
Whom you believe is your trustworthy guy,
correct.
he start misusing your.
Correct. It can happen. See, these are adverse situations, wherein in some situations, like each time you are trying to be open, it is misused. Your trust is misused. But then somewhere down the line, if you are consistent, in that, the other person will get into the receiving end. Because see, all the organizations have rules and regulations. We all have certain protocols, certain practices. So whenever that violation happens more persistently from the other, and it's happening, so you have already developed a nature where people say, this guy cannot do it. I think he's
Actually, that happens because
Yeah.
trust should happen from both the sides, not on the one side.
correct.
In this case, as Sanvesh said, that he misuses it. Actually, that guy also should have the same or some kind of trust.
There could be a scenario wherein both they trust each other.
He's talking about adversity. So
But
there
at
is a situation
some
where
point in time, the other person may misuse your trust.
correct.
That is
So it
also
can
possible.
happen. There are situations that can happen because see, there is also this aspect of some people can look at it from a more selfish motive.
It's like
No,
blind
actually,
faith,
trust comes
blind
with
faith,
the
sort of
proper
blind
understanding
faith.
of the person, right? If you lose the trust, means you are not understanding the person properly.
Absolutely. So he is telling, I am forcing myself not to understand the person because I am trying to be selfish here. Maybe it is a bias itself. Let's say that situation we face. So there, in such a situation, what you are telling is right. When you stick to your things, when you are still continue to be open, continue to be persistently, continue to be transparent and open, then you are on the winning side all the time. Because when a situation like this comes, it happened even in one instance where there was a conflict between two people. So we knew for sure, okay, there one person who was on the receiving end, although he didn't speak much, he was not defending himself or herself too much, we happened to give the benefit of doubt to that person. Because it was more consistent from his surroundings, his people, that this guy is a very trustworthy guy. He always speaks
That
the
shows
truth.
his
Yeah,
understanding
his
of the
influence
person,
is-
other person.
Exactly. So there is a eventuality in such adverse situation that the person who is actually doing this will get caught on the wrong foot. So that's so we predominantly, if we maintain that, we are able to overcome those situations.
This trusting is a cultural problem also a little.
Yes.
So typically if you see the typical American taxation, you are
Right.
trusted unless you are
Yes.
you are proven otherwise.
Otherwise.
Whereas our kind of systems
Yes.
are you are first you are not trusted first.
Correct.
You are treated like a criminal till you prove yourself you are a
Correct.
gentleman.
Correct.
So that
Absolutely.
I think is a cultural problem.
It's a
here.
cultural problem here.
For us.
So that's where I'm trying to tell that we can change that in our own way, in each of our own ways, because
The earlier bureaucratic offices and all that, basically somebody asks to leave first is mistrust.
exactly.
You don't
Exactly.
believe.
Yeah, because there is no mutual, like he also said, there is no mutual belief between each other. But having said that, now the situation
When the work relationship is better,
better. Yes,
naturally.
it is better. But when the situations also force you in a direction where you have to mislead the managers slightly because you want to attend your situation and ensure that is, so we are forced to do that. So if you happen to handle that better than somebody else, then you are at a better advantage eventually. Because why I am stressing on this aspect is time and again we have seen these situations coming back and back to us all the time, wherein we are not able to establish that connect. So we are at 3 p.m. almost now. So I have reached the conclusion of this. We'll do an activity. So this will happen for about half an hour, and after that we can take or we can have a break and then do the activity, or do the activity and have a break. Do the activity and have a break. So that will be more spontaneous. And then with the last part I will try to cover much faster because I dwelled more on this. And the application of it, I'm sure we can relate to it through role plays. So that's the best thing, and it will be more what you call engaging also. So we don't, I won't be standing here giving certain inputs. You can do it on your own. So just to conclude, to do well and sustain your job, you need your skill and intelligence, which all of us agree to. So for performing well, you need more aspects than just skill. So that's what we have been talking about so far. So one of the most important aspect is personality development. So even during the introductory session and in this session, so in introductory session we found that what is important. Here we know what we have to develop. So by the way, before I get on to the final part of it, do all of you agree on the aspects that we discussed so far? Like when we talk about patience, but of course there will be some conflicting views on how we establish that trust, how we do that influence. But do you feel that you have consciously attempted to do this? Yes?
Yes.
Yes. And do you feel that it has worked in your favor whenever you did this?
Yes.
Many ways than not, it has worked. So, and have you faced a situation where some of these things went out of your hand and then you had to come back, and you might have faced? So that itself is an example for you where you have to try to come back to these aspects and try to keep it intact, because there will be certain situations which will force you to get out of that discipline of yours, to have patience, to be persistent, to have the right influence, all these aspects. So how do you develop a good personality? So you have to develop your EQ. working on all these aspects that I have spoken to you about. Patience, perseverance, influence, ability to ask the right questions. In any forum, suppose in a meeting like this, so when there is a very important discussion happening, how many of you want to interrupt and ask a question because you don't agree to what is being discussed? How many of you feel that's the right thing to do? You can just lift your hand up. Suppose some discussion, serious discussion is happening. Would you like to put your hand up and say, hey, I don't believe this?
We do it many times.
You do, right? Yeah.
And many may not be doing because they are shy by nature. They may not
Sure.
agree, but they will.
Exactly.
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 Go with the
So how many of you are like that? Like you're shy by nature, you can lift your hands up. Don't feel yeah. So now
Many times it may not even be shy. You may not want to disrupt the flow of the.
disrupt the flow.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, what happens, you therefore put your points after the points are over. You express your views, obviously.
Exactly. So there are two ways.
The seniority also plays a very important role.
Correct.
Like when you have a mixed crowd like this,
Mhm.
I'm sure the juniors won't be comfortable asking questions.
Correct.
Though they may have valid questions in their mind,
Correct.
they may not be comfortable asking such questions.
Correct.
So that also plays an important role in the
Right.
election meetings.
Absolutely. So I agree to all these points. So that's where we are all sitting together and trying to look into it from that perspective. But for the youngsters, some of the youngsters who are here, who felt that way, there is a protocol. I'm sure all the senior members will know and they will agree with me on that. There is a protocol so whenever you feel something is disturbing or distracting you, there is nothing wrong in lifting your hand. If you say, hey, no, I don't agree, if you start spontaneously talking, that breaks your relationship, that breaks your strength. You can always put your hand up. Then the person, whoever is the convener of that meeting, he would say two things, one or the other. One thing he or she might say is, hang on, I will open up for questions, I will come back to you. Point number one. Otherwise, they might say, okay, what is your question? Is it relevant to something that I am talking now? Is it important? You say yes, then you ask your question. So there's nothing wrong in putting your hand up and making your presence felt and telling that you are more attentive, you are being part of it. If you are shy, if you feel that you're too junior to the crowd and thereby you're not listening, then you lose the race. So you have to be bold enough, you have to be assertive enough to lift your hand up. And so these are small instances. Why I am trying to bring back these instances, it should be relative to what you're doing in the office. It should be related to what you might do at home as well. So during an interaction, in fact, I have written it in my book as far as the personal context is concerned. So wherein how you can actually interrupt but still not make a person offended by it. Like typically what we do is, when in a conversation somebody is deviating, somebody is going tangential, then, arey yaar, come back to the point, I don't know, you are talking something total. So that totally puts off the other guy. Then he says, okay, fine, our that connect is gone. Instead, you can do, can I ask a question now? So, okay, then he might still agree to that, there is an agreement. So then you ask a question which is actually related to the world. Like for example, two people are talking about politics. When they're talking about politics, suddenly this guy starts talking about one person in politics, and somebody like, let's say Rahul Gandhi and Modi. This guy starts talking about Rahul Gandhi, and suddenly it becomes about the topic between Rahul Gandhi and Modi instead of politics that we're talking. Then you can interrupt by asking a question, telling that, hey, how is this related to this particular thing that we're talking about? Yeah, so this is how it is connected. So you bring the conversation back to the context, and you are challenged by the other person that I am kind of deviating. So these are very small, minor aspects which will help in your dialogue with people whenever you are interacting on a one-on-one, or a counseling, or in a meeting. It might sound trivial when I'm telling it right now, but then when you actually do it, it will help you in many ways than not. Okay. So all these we have touched upon, and last but not the least, have an enterprising nature. So yes, some of us are introverts, some of us are extroverts, and we have our own space. But nothing can stop us from being enterprising. So what do I mean by being enterprising? By being a person for all, not for one. It is one for all and all for one. So that kind of a situation you should always maintain in your minds with your colleagues and with your peers and back home with your people near and dear ones. So what that makes you is an enterprising person. People will not hesitate in engaging you into certain aspect. Like for example, there is a project, there is a very important project that is happening, and you have to list out names. Who are the right people for this project? The few people who will come right at the top of the list is the people who are enterprising in nature, who would like to do certain things, who would like to be there right up the front, whether you lose or you win. So there are many people who actually are very aggressive, they come in and they fail. So even such people are, from my experience, I'm sure all the senior members can relate to it, they're still given a chance because at least they put their best foot forward. So developing a personality is the most important aspect in developing a personality is to have an enterprising nature. The enterprising nature will bring that entrepreneurial instincts in you, and in every organization, everybody needs entrepreneurs. They need employees who can think for the organization, not for you, for the manager or about the organization. If I do this for the organization, a person who thinks for the organization, he is the person who will never be debated in terms of performance management, performance appraisal. Whenever if you are dedicated, if you are focused on ensuring that the organization goes from one stage to another, and what your contribution should be for getting that done, like what Kennedy used to say, ask what you can do for your country. Don't ask what the country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country. So each time you think in that direction and you handle everything using your EQ and IQ, balance it, you can achieve success much more consistently than you are right now. So, and I'm sure you are already successful, so you can be more successful is what I meant to say. So now very quickly I will let you know about this activity. It's a very simple activity. It won't take much time. So we'll just dedicate about 25 minutes for this. We have about 25 minutes. So I will make, how many of you are here? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 25. So 5 per
Including
team.
26.
Yeah, including 26. 5 per team. So we'll start with this. So count from 1 to 5, and then again back to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 like that. Okay. So okay, 4 teams. 1 to 4. So start.
1, 2, 3, 4, 1.
You have to
2, 3, 4.
1, 2, 3, 4.
remember your numbers.
2,
3, 4.
1, 2,
3, 4. 1, 2, 3.
So all the ones, please come forward. We'll do some shuffling because you've been sitting in the same chair. So you can rearrange yourself. All the ones. All the twos, all the ones this side, and all the twos can move on the other side. The first few chairs. Ones can occupy the first few chairs. Just reshuffling you, giving you some exercise movement. And then 3 and 4 beside them. So 1, 3, 2 starts there, 3, 4 like that. So okay.
I mean, voluntarily decide.
Yeah, 1 and 3 this side.
This is
2 and 4 that
one.
side.
So
1 and 3 this side, 2 and 4 that side.
3.
Shout out your number loudly.
4.
There are 5 of them. 4.
6 of us, is it?
Have the
Few 6 of us. How? 1, 2, 3.
segregate yourself. It looks more like a homogeneous team. It should be segregated. This is 2. That is 4.
This is 4. There are the 3. 3 chairs.
1, 3, Yeah, 1, 2, 1, 3, 4. Good. So each of you, in fact, you can sit actually closer, maybe in more semicircular fashion. You sit, yeah.
Something which we need to
More like a discussion, yeah.
Okay.
Like a round table. Yeah. This feels more like teams now. Either you can give a name to your team, or you can keep it as numbers only. What do you prefer? You want to give a name? Name.
Ours is winning team. Name.
Name.
Winning team.
So each one of you can decide a name for your team, and one person who will represent your team. That person will be the leader, because I will be calling them here to make a presentation. Very simple, short presentation. Nothing complicated. Remember, the bottom line, you should be enterprising. So you should put your hand up and say, hey, I'll be the presenter. You should fight for being the presenter. So decided the names?
Yes.
Very quickly, we should do it quickly because we have this time.
We have a name.
You have a name. Okay, we'll start with one first. What is your
First, sir.
what
First, one.
One or first?
First will give.
First. Okay. Achievers. Three.
Winning team. Winning team. Winners.
Yes.
JRD Tata.
JRD Tata. Yes. That's interesting. Okay. And you have chosen your representative.
Yes.
Yeah? Okay, this is the situation. Okay. So there is a situation back in your office wherein it's a very important project. It is it's one of the toughest situations for your organization. It's a make or break situation for your organization. So you have to launch this product, and your team, each one of you is a team. Your team is working on that, and you people have the know-how. You know everything about this project. There's nobody else. Even if one member misses out or is not there for this project, it might lead into complications. So it can be a disaster to the extent that we may not be able to do the launch the coming day, and that could actually lead into losing jobs. And your managing director comes in front of you and he says, this is the situation for us. On the same day, what happens is there is very bad weather. The weather is so bad, so strong. There is a hurricane. There are a lot of announcements coming in. I'm sorry, I'm getting calls from home and it's distracting me. So a lot of weather problems, and it is continuously coming on the news that if you don't head back home, so there could be situation back home in terms of there could be some calamity. The houses are getting there's a big flood, like the Chennai flood. What happened? So they're getting flooded, and people at homes have to be evacuated. Literally that kind of a situation. And people from your home are desperately calling you, trying to get your attention to come back home. So you have two such situations here. One is a situation where your MD is telling, it is make or break for us. If all of us don't stay here in the office, we might even lose the jobs. I might lose my job, and one of you might lose your job. However it is, it will affect us personally. And otherwise, there is also a situation back home where you have to rush back to attend to your near and dear ones. You don't have a choice because weather is like that, and there's continuous dialogue happening between you and your family members as to what. So in this situation, what will you do? How will you handle this situation? You have to use all the aspects of emotional intelligence, and you have to get a win-win situation. How you do it is up to you, and you can explain in terms of what you're going to do. In such, I will not recommend any solutions. You can come up with your own solutions. This is just a situation. But end of the day, you know that it has to be win-win. So how do you handle this? So you can debate about it, you can discuss on that, and then come up with a presentation. You can cover all the aspects of what you believed, you would require for emotional intelligence. You had a question, sir? Any questions? Any questions?
How much time do we have?
You have about, okay, let me look at the time aspect also, yeah. So it is around 3:20 now, let's say 3:18 to be precise. So maybe you can take 10 minutes to discuss. So we'll start one by one. So each team gets 2 minutes to come and present here. So we take about 10 minutes for that. So 10 minutes for discussion, 10 minutes for presentation.
Make yourself safe, something like that. I am safe here. You make yourself safe. Something different. What is Okay, I think there have been situations. May not be hurricanes and so there's probably a list of people who's they for example whoever is more critical, try to realize my work such that we can afford to have a map or sometimes come back after some time. How many so you realize work in such a way that something can stand by until somebody else. We have dealt with these. Realize the same thing.
So you have 5 more minutes, you can conclude on what your presentation
You might not be able at the same time talk to the customer. And ensure that anyway, how the news, right? Everybody knows.
done?
Yes.
Very good. Winners have done it.
We won actually.
You won the first battle, so let's see.
Something happened.
You're done.
But the situation what you're doing is
Situation what I've given?
and we pray for it. In our generation and next generation should not happen.
No, but it's already happened in our generation. You know, the Chennai flood.
Yeah, Chennai is not a live example of this.
Yes.
My own brother had to deal with these
So next generation is saying.
We faced this during our campus to IIT Madras. So wherein we had to do this review and everything is flooded. There's no hotels also, and all the VPs and everybody are on the street with pants folded and walking in the water. And we had to send a vehicle from the thing, and it would take about 4 hours to reach. Until then, they had to be in that state. But still, they had to finish their job and come. So we have 2 more minutes. So there's one team which is still planning.
I was only telling him that no more thinking.
KRT Tata is still
That name itself is for emotional. KRT Tata.
Oh yeah.
It's an emotional, like the organization that
Seems to be an emotional attachment.
the highest
They are emotionally connected with So all is that? We have 1 more minute. KRT Tata is done. That's it. Okay, everybody is set. So who'll go first? I mean, it may not be in the same order as 1, 2, 3, 4. So who'll go first? Yeah, winners are again taking the lead. they should raise their hand first. Okay, winners first.
We can come?
Yeah.
No, maybe my entire team can come.
Others can participate.
Moral support.
Not moral support.
Emotional support, I think.
Emotional support.
Okay, let's give it some.
Yeah.
So first of all, thanks to my team members. In fact, I wanted one of my young colleagues to come forward and share our views, but somehow they made me responsible for this. So your problem statement was very clear, but I would say, I have spent a good amount of time in this industry. I would say the requirement capturing was not done properly. So you didn't define the scope very clearly, in scope, out scope. So we have
Assumptions will come out.
that is what we did when we took up this problem statement.
This is looking like one of our defensive proposals.
But then we thought to overcome this problem, we will have a few assumptions. That's how we start with whenever we submit a proposal. So the first assumption we are taking is, even though the outside weather is pretty bad for anybody to move out, I'm assuming that the communication system is in place. The entire communication system is in place, so that if anybody wants to reach out to people back home, the communication system is in place. That's the first assumption we have taken. Second, I think in your statement, there was no clarity in terms of when the project needs to be completed, the time available with the project team.
Tomorrow, I said the next day. We have
So
to launch.
next day would need maybe a couple of hours, if I can say so. Right? Correct.
Yeah, around few hours between now and
Around few hours.
yeah.
So we discussed with our team. Unfortunately, we had people from younger generation to middle age to people, young people like me. So we realize the patience is going to play a very important role in this problem statement, because you have problem in-house, you have problem outside also. So if you take any step in a hurry, there is a possibility you might create more problem for you and for your family and for the organization you work for. Suppose you move out, something happens, you are not able to even reach your home, and you left your workplace. So neither you are here nor there. So the best solution which came up after discussing with the team, to show patience. Second is to request the managing director to postpone the launch. Unfortunately, our MD is here.
So there I was very clear. So there is no.
No, though the problem statement says,
Yes.
but as a team we decided it is best in the interest of everybody to postpone the launch, because the world is not going to stop if you don't launch your product, right? Here the emotional aspect comes in, because there is a fear in your mind to lose your job. Even then you are going ahead and making this statement, or rather going to your MD and requesting for a postponement. Third is, if let's say nothing works, then the best solution is to be with your near ones and dear ones. First priority is to go out and be with your family. And using the communication network, get connected with the team and start producing, or start working, or start delivering. That way you will have a lot of free mind to deliver more and more. So this is what we felt we will
Within 2 minutes, we will.
Any questions? Anybody?
Yeah, any questions on this approach?
Any questions? Any
We are very,
doubts?
we are very clear about the assumption. Communication is there.
Yeah, communication system.
Yes,
No, see, communication is there, you don't have a problem.
We put the assumption first.
Okay.
The communication system is in place, you don't have a problem.
No, that the
People
assumption
are
we
calling
started
you
with.
from home to reach home because the weather is bad. He also mentioned.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So that assumption is very much
Valid.
justified. Valid.
Yes, yes.
So there is.
And similarly, we can also call back.
Yes,
and
yes,
meet.
yes.
It's a connectivity.
We have a clarification on that as well.
So there's no right or wrong, it is an approach, each team will have an approach, so we just have to see and appreciate what are the aspects
ideas.
that we are discussing about.
Other ideas.
Yeah.
You wanna put the point there?
Any other,
Not necessary, because the points revolve around the same aspects, right?
so if they all agree with our approach, then they can declare us as winner.
As of now, only
You
one.
should have patience. You have to demonstrate patience. They are yet to take their next.
Hello, very good afternoon to everyone. I am Anup Teginkai from University. Actually, yeah, as Anmesh sir told, like, according to some assumptions, our team come up with some solutions. Like, there are two important things, like family and organization. So these are the two important things. Like, we can't go with only one single favor. Like, if I go favor with our family, the organization will fall down. Like, if I go favor with some organization, family will go. Like, there are two important things. Like, see, according to our team discussion, we have some scenarios. Like, you have come up with some solutions. Like, for initially, family is important and organization also important. First, in case if family is in danger, we can't, our mind is in stress, we can't do work and all those things. Like, I'll just do call to my family. Like, as communication, as internet is there, like, I call to my family. If they come like, office itself or some other safer place, they may go over there. Or else, they can't come. Like, I'll go with some other scenario, like,
You say point by point.
Yeah.
So scenario one is like, okay, the family itself can move out.
Yeah.
And we communicate them to move out. Actually. So that is the
Or
scenario.
scenario second is like, I'll take third party help. I'll call some neighbors or any relatives. I'll call them and I'll tell them to make my family safer side. Like, tell them to come in safer place or some kind of things. This is the scenario two. Or else scenario three is like, I'll talk with my management. Like, if organization is there, they are taking care of. I'm working in organization. They're supposed to take care of my family also. Like, not exactly like that. They're supposed to
They
care
will
of
have
my
some
family.
resources which can be utilized.
They can
Yeah.
they can arrange some resources for, like, some of my family.
Like a hotel,
Yeah.
any
Some
safety
lot of- some vehicles.
vehicles.
Basically, you request the management
Management.
to help to
Yeah.
lead the family out from there to the
And I'm
safer
sure
place.
the MD will agree to that because
Yeah.
he knows the danger, even his family is at danger. So.
Like, in another scenario, like, organization, like, nothing but we have one team, like, we have divided into two parts. Like, yeah, one part we'll work here itself, and one part we'll go and make some arrangement for our.
That is the scenario for where nothing is possible.
Nothing is
possible.
We divide into half.
Half.
Two teams.
Yes.
The half the team will take care of the friend's family also,
Yes.
and they will bring back, and afterwards they will come back. So that is the scenario
The
four.
scenario.
There is no delay for
Yeah, like, organization also, like, whoever
Everyone
the
is saying the same thing.
Then fifth scenario is,
yeah, fifth scenario, like,
suppose there
my
is no
family-
communication,
No.
nothing is possible. Then you go as fast as possible and come back after putting them in safety.
Yes. So that's the worst case scenario.
Yeah.
Now, when it worst come worst, we have to think about that.
So these are the five scenarios.
Yeah. So claps to both the teams. So wonderful presentation,
Yeah,
both the
any
teams.
doubts, like.
Yeah, any doubts anybody has? No, I think we all, this is a homogeneous team now. So everybody is so the two major aspects that have come out from the first presentation and the second presentation is that first come first, we don't compromise. So we use certain aspects of having certain patience and also influencing. So patience more in terms of not reacting to the situation, instead thinking about it, having a discussion, planning a solution towards it. So that's the first team's agenda was towards that, in order to plan or rather not react. The second team came up with a step-by-step approach, wherein for each situation they found a solution, and they tried to use certain aspects of emotional intelligence, wherein they influence, they communicate, they are persistent, they are also patient. So all these aspects have helped them in coming up with multiple solutions to attend to the problem rather than run away from the problem. So both the teams have actually brainstormed in order to ensure that we don't compromise. At the same time, we also protect the interest of the organization as well as personal interest. Well done. So the next team.
Hi. Yeah, each one of us had different points to make. We kind of exercised all our minds. We have 3 different scenarios, no assumptions of course anywhere. One of the first things, one of the important points which one of our colleagues mentioned is we'll try to organize remote help. Primarily because if the situation outside is bad, you cannot travel. If you go, you don't know whether you go, come back. We do not know what the situation is. So the idea is to organize remote help. Friends, family, whoever it is, try to ensure that your corresponding families are safe. That is one of the scenarios. The other thing is internally. Now, if that happens or some portion of it happens, great. The second scenario is, within us as a team. Not all our families are staying in the same area. Some families could be safer, some families may not be so safe. So we prioritize which are the families which need more help and realign your work so that that corresponding person can go and come and try to enable that in some form so that work still happens, but the families get saved. That is the third aspect which can also be done internally irrespective of all this is if the situation is bad, the customer also knows, he also reads the news, he also is hearing the news, so he knows. So, try to buy some time with your customer or try a wire with your solution, give him some portion. You say launch the product with this, but then later we will, come with something else. So this is what we kind of summarized our thoughts. Having said all this, I want to extend my talk for 1 more minute. The same Anup who was with me working on the project, I would like to take this opportunity to tell all of you.
Yes.
We had a situation recently where we had to deliver a project. Anup was working on it. Unfortunately, his father met with a very serious accident. And this situation came to me. He was at the client site at that time. And the news is, yes, his father met with a serious accident. He is in the ICU. He needs to go. But Anup stood by. He did the same thing which we said. He organized remote help. His family, his brothers. He ensured that his father was taken care of. He stayed back for 2 to 3 full days, finished his work, and then he went that weekend. I would like to. Although yes, he was mentally disturbed, he was everything. We still gave him. I said, go ahead. I'll take care of the customer. But he still stood back, ensured he delivered. So that's 1 point for you, right?
Wonderful. So they actually see this kind of activity also kind of gives you an opportunity to come up with what you yourself have experienced, and it will relate to your experience and you can easily connect to it. So that was the objective here. Once again, very good presentation, and although certain solutions similar, there will be a lot of similarities in the solutions that we are deriving, but in each of that, what I am looking at is the consistency of using all these aspects. So we are not reacting to the situation, we are trying to be more patient about it, we are trying to solve the problem rather than be worried about the problem. So that's where we are using all these elements of emotional quotient that we have to develop in handling such a situation. So last team. You have to at least tell your team names.
Hi, this is Sunil.
Yes,
I'm
yes.
from JRE Tata team.
This way.
JRE Tata team. We actually end up with.
Why did you name it as JRD Tata? Emotionally connected.
Oh, we have 1 member less in our team, so we recruited JRD.
Oh.
Influence.
We actually concluded 3 scenarios. The first scenario is the news is out, the weather is bad, and somebody is calling home from home, and we have a important launch at office. And what we do in this particular situation is we call our team members for a meeting. The very first thing we discuss in a group and understand each problems, whether at home or at work. So who has what work and who has what kind of trouble at home. We understand those things. We prioritize problems, and we distribute team. Like prioritizely, like we will distribute half the team member to rescue, half of the team members to work. So that way, we share problems. And second thing is remote help again. If the reach is beyond the limit, we call our neighbors, we call our relations, relatives, or rescue or a government kind of that is a second scenario. And access to call center. We being an organization which is launching a product, they'll be having a different categories or divisions. So we will ask whichever, see if the call center is involved, if the call center is there, we will just add a call center to go for a rescue, communicate with people. So these kind of scenarios we are solving. And we make sure that even the office work is enough and the rescue work is also related.
We allocate one person to attend only the family calls. The point.
Yes, rescue calls. Yeah, that also we have. We will exclusively appoint a person or recognize a person to attend the rescue.
Yeah. So wonderful. To conclude, I think this activity. Hope you enjoyed the activity.
Yes.
And
no, we don't want to be there.
So that's why I gave a very extreme situation, because you may not face this day in and day out. If you face this day in and day out, it's very easy. You just say what you do all the time.
You recruit the rescue team.
So that's why I gave an extreme situation. See, only when there is an extreme situation, all this will be tested and tried. All these aspects, your patience, your perseverance, your ability to influence, all this will be tested. And how you handle it, despite, now that we are talking only about this, consistently about this since morning, so we have perfectly arrived into what the solution can be. And I'm sure this is the solution that is meant to be. Having said that, in a situation where we are time bound, there are a lot of issues and there are too many calls. Like for example, just now I was getting frantic calls and I thought there is some problem. It is coming from my wife's mobile. So usually my wife never calls the normal course, but it's going on coming. Then I called my wife, what is the problem? She says, your daughter is playing my phone. So she said, so this is exactly what happened. So there could be false alarms. So that's why, that's where all these aspects, see, if you look at this activity, each one of you have followed these stages. So you reflected upon the problem. You saw what is going to eventually happen if we don't handle this problem the way it has to be. Like launch, postponing the launch was one of the aspects that was said, but then there was no scope for it. Despite that, there is an attempt made, because it can still be negated, but at least your MD will compromise on certain other aspects in terms of how I can support you otherwise.
But the good part is that crisis are always close of leaders also.
Exactly.
That's the good part of the problem.
Exactly. And crisis brings the best out of you.
Best to the people.
Yes. The crisis brings the best out of you. It will test your human nature, and if you are able to, handle it in the way that it is meant to be in terms of handling your own emotions, use your emotional intelligence. Each one of you used all these aspects. Absorption happened when you had to absorb that emotional situation where your frantic calls are coming from your home and they're telling we can be in danger, our lives can be in danger. Now how do you absorb that? By actually telling I'm sending somebody else. Each one of you told that solution would be that I will handle this problem for you. I have to be there here. My mind is already preoccupied here. So maybe even I won't be able to come there because of this situation. But we will ensure that. So you have been able to absorb it well and then give a solution to it. You have introspected in terms of whether or not this barrier is a barrier itself. So like none of you came and told, okay, we'll leave everything, we'll run. We'll go home and we'll take care of our near and dear. We told that as a worst come worst situation. So we introspected in terms of why this is more important, how we have to handle this in such a way that there is win-win on both the ends. And all of you displayed tremendous amount of patience in terms of doing this activity, because each one of you, although like the first team told there were many assumptions that needs to be made. So despite that, the points that you have mentioned itself displays a lot of attributes in terms of how you want to ensure nothing is done inadvertently. Nothing is done by in haste. So plan. You have certain plan in action. So that is how you will approach it. That needs a lot of patience. And then persistence in terms of ensuring that we finish the job. We do this as well. We do that as well. So we overcome the barriers and achieve our goals. So that's, and obviously influence in many ways. So hope you like the activity and hope it kind of related to what we were discussing about. So let's not change this format. So once we will take a break, maybe 5 minutes break, and we'll come back. And please assemble back in the same format. I will quickly run through my slides and then immediately we are back onto the activity. And that is going to be even more interesting activity. It will be more humorous. We will have more fun with that. And we'll end the session with that. Thank you so much.
So I think you all are winners?
Oh yeah. By the way, winners want to know who is the winner. So let's grant it to them because they started the initiative. So when they don't agree, then we have to only tell that you have justified more than what the winners could justify in terms of what we have to do and how we have to do and all that, and they have agreed to it. So in a way, in your own way, you have been winners.
No, you have achieved.
You have achieved.
Sounds like solving problems between my kids.
Thank you so much. Thank you. So we assemble back at 3:48, 3:50 now. So by 4.
Can you tell him after 5
Yeah.
minutes?
Oh, there's one more.
Nitin, tea is there? It is outside, huh?
No. 5 minutes. Will come. So maybe we can take 5-minute bio break and then.
Without any doubt, we will have it. Without any doubt.
There's a technique to it. So you will not know. Absolutely what you're doing is right. You will not know what so what you think is you have to teach you what's going on, what we plan. So initially you will not straight away have the question, the right question to ask.
Based on that, you can raise a question. It is one approach, but if it is like, how can we decide that question is right? That question might be, I don't know whether it is right or wrong. I don't know about that. I want to ask the question. That might seem right to me.
Correct. So when you actually listen to multiple points of view, then it will influence your thoughts. Because when you started, when the session was started, whatever, whether it's a meeting or started, you will have certain points of view straight away. Now when with that you start, putting across your points of view and all that. So it might not be, it may go out of context. It may not be the right phrase. Right? So but one second. So once you listen to all the people who have their own point of view, then you will start formulating your opinion in a more constructive manner. Because you know that certain things what you felt was not correct, your presumptions were not correct. So you correct, you fine tune that. And that will lead to you in asking the right question. Because the reason why I told asking the right question is important is it doesn't mean that you already have the question in your mind. It means that you form an opinion based on this and you then ask the right question. Because that's where your opinion will come. Because you are in the context, you are trying to align yourself, relate yourself to what is happening, and then you are asking the question. So it means it is the right question. The person who's the receiving end will admire you. Say, wow, that's a good question. Because you are attentive, you understood what is going on, you understood the context. Based on that, you are asking the question. You have to formulate your question.
I got that. I am confusing what the right question is. Right question
your mind after listening to various people presenting their points of view on that subject?
It should not go out of the context.
Yes.
Our
That's
question is out of the context.
out of the context. Generally asking a question which is irrelevant. No problem. Yes.
This exercise, one assumption everybody has made, but nobody has mentioned is that
Yes.
the team actually agreed to do that.
Yeah.
There might be an instance where half the team members blankly say, no, I don't want to stay,
Correct.
I want to go home.
Correct.
Irrelevant of what you are trying to
Correct.
protect.
Correct.
So how will
So that's the whole idea of this activity, right? So after my presentation.
activities, I mean, the solutions presented are more on how they will deal with the situation. But even before that, how will you actually convince people to stay back, not to go?
Correct. So what they have demonstrated, each of the team, what they have demonstrated is, so they need so much of pressurizing because they are emotionally intelligent to handle
No,
that.
it's an idealistic,
Yes.
I mean, it's not a real scenario.
Real scenario, okay.
So people
Yes.
won't, they don't put themselves in that situation.
Correct. So if let's talk outside this situation in terms of if it was not an activity. If it was not an activity, the first thing that would have happened is the moment MD comes and he puts across his point of view, the first question everybody would ask is, we have the situation back home, how will you support us with that? That's the question that straight away will be posed to MD. So now MD has to come up with his, because obviously even his family is in danger. His or her family is also in danger. That, tomorrow if he doesn't handle it, so what he would have done as an MD is he will give certain support. Like he will give a cab or he will give something. So end of the day he will say that you still can be here and we can send one group of people there, do something. So in fact, there are some things only the MD will tell, okay, I can do one and two. You can add to that 1 and 2, giving 3 and 4 by telling, that is the way you are emotionally handling it. By telling, yes, I will do your job, I will do, because we are all working for the company, we are all trying to save. But do this 2 and 3 also. That is instance. How you first you agree. The instance, that is how trust is built. The first instance, you say yes. You don't know the other person, you don't know, you still say yes. And then go over it, plan it. And then in the process, if something goes wrong, if that trust is lost, it will never come back in. That even the MD knows. Even managing director, he is the managing director because he has certain responsibilities at a very high level. He cannot come and fool people. So at the same time, you have that power of bearing an influence. And that power comes only when you are able to handle it well. You are able to patiently take it. If you just rise up, oh no way, I cannot do the job, I'm going home, something can happen, say, the whole thing. So what MD might say is, I don't know, this is my situation, if you have to go, you can go. Now the other people who are staying back should take over and then handle it. The person who loses is the person who overreacted, who reacted emotionally. That's how happens in a real situation. In a real situation, there will be 1 or 2 people who become a little bit carried away. They might overreact. So they lose out in the race. Like he gave an example, one of your own colleagues. So how he handled that situation. So he was there for some time. He took care of all those things, and then approach. He still didn't want to let that situation go out of his hand. And that can become an opportunity for him now because he displayed that trait. Tomorrow he becomes a person who is ahead of the others in terms of competition. Whereas if he had been very convenient, because his boss is anyway telling you take care of things at home, I will take care of things at office, you don't worry about it. Now that may be an opportunity lost. It's an opportunity lost because you didn't have that emotional support that for yourself that you could go and handle both the situations. So if you develop that over a period of time, trying to balance, even in your personal life you might be doing that many times, right? So you have to balance it up. But in an office kind of a scenario, you can look at each such instances as an opportunity. Don't look at it as a challenge and get emotionally drained because of it. Look at it as an opportunity and try to balance that by not getting emotionally affected.
It is running.
It is not switched off.
Still good.
Oh, it's
Off
going
it off.
Ability with respect to emotional intelligence. The most important aspect that you should have is you should know what is your current state of emotion. Knowing your current state of emotion can happen by dwelling a little bit upon Maslow's hierarchy. How many of you know about Maslow's hierarchy of needs? Yeah, so a couple of you know about hierarchy of needs. So I'll actually go into that. 'Cause
The slide is on.
sorry.
It's also called as Maslow's theory of satisfaction.
Yes. So it has different connotations to it. It can be used in different contexts as well. So some use it for management, I'm using it for emotional intelligence. So it all kind of relates. So just for everybody else, because only a couple of people raised their hands, but then I'm sure you might have heard about this. Maslow's hierarchy of needs is basically what you're seeing. So it's a pyramid wherein you start, as a human being, we have various levels of needs throughout our, as we age, as we evolve in our lives. So we have various levels of needs. So it always starts with the physiological needs. So physiological needs are very basic in nature. So your food, water, warmth and rest. Without these we cannot even survive. For a human being you need this. So that is basic. I think even if you relate it to animals, they need this. So this is basic. So food, water, warmth, rest, that is basic survival. So all of us need. More or less we are all 100% there. So there's no issue there at all. The next thing is about safety needs. That is your security and your safety. You need to be safe. If you are able to protect yourself, you can only then protect others. So the safety needs and the physiological needs form the basic needs for a human being. So the whole idea of presenting this is, as we evolve as individuals, so we keep facing challenges in each of these needs. So like for example, people who are below poverty line, so they might even not reach beyond these basic needs. They might get stuck at safety or even physiological needs because they might not even find food or water for themselves. So for such people, even survival becomes a challenge. But none of us are in that stage, so we don't have to even debate that. We are not doing any kind of a social kind of an intervention here. Having said that, now let's go to the other set of needs. So this is where we all belong to, in terms of whether we have overcome that or we are stuck somewhere. Belongingness and love needs, intimate relationships, friends, relatives, family, all this. Like few people, so I cannot take examples, and I'm sure there are examples, so I cannot pinpoint and take examples. Having said that, I already quoted one example wherein one of our employees' wife called up and there was an issue there. Now for that employee to perform in his organization, whatever, if he keeps getting this distraction where his wife is calling, there are issues that are happening. Now that is definitely a barrier. That's a huge barrier that he has to break. And now for him to perform, to even to survive in the organization, it becomes so. Somewhere down the line, if we get caught up with that, then we won't be able to move forward, both in our professional life as well as personal life. So our personal life is affecting our professional. So it is very important for you to identify if you are held up somewhere, or if you are held up, how you are planning to overcome that. The next, esteem needs. Of course, in this need, although few people, the intensity levels vary. Of course, we all face some problems, in relation, but it's not as bad as that we cannot overcome that. So we are all able to, our maturity level is good enough where we could overcome that. But there are some really good, there are some outstanding people who get stuck with those needs and they get caught up. You might have read some stories also on the newspaper, like there are CEOs and MDs, and I think you might, the most famous is Bill Clinton. So all these are issues that happens within relationships. In fact, it happened even with Arnold Schwarzenegger once he became the, yes, yeah. Yeah, so we never realized that. We never knew before he became a senator that he had issues within his family. Then it all came up all of a sudden. One fine day it came up. And even he got, after all that, in fact, they were looking at him as a presidential candidate. Suddenly his thing just dropped. So he's still stuck with his knee despite all his achievements. Maybe to reach that stage of self-actualization, it may not be possible over a period of time for him. So likewise, esteem needs, prestige and feeling of accomplishment. Now we all want to grow in our own personal ways, in terms of lifestyle, in terms of quality of living. So we need to have a big house. We were talking about that during lunch. So it was a very interesting topic, how the real estate market is going. And each one has their own ambitions, desires to have a house, to have a car, to have comfort living. So it's maybe not everybody wants to have a big villa or something to survive. But then there are certain comforts that we are looking at. So if those are the needs that we get stuck with, like suppose I could not buy a brand new car, I couldn't buy a BMW this year. And if that is working in my mind, if I'm preoccupied with that, or like for example, my friend bought a car, and I have the same experience. I also earn as much. How come I don't have a car? Or my friend bought a SUV, and I'm still in a four-wheeler. So I'm sorry, I'm still with a sedan or a small car. So when will I buy a SUV? If that is always affecting you in your mind, then it affects your progress. Personal as well as professional. I'm not telling it is always professional. So it can be personal as well. Somewhere you get stuck and you're not happy in your life. So these things are bothering you more than anything else. So you get stuck in that thing. And last but not the least, self-actualization. So I would like to quote here about what Modi happened to say. So I read an article where one of these Congress guy, he was a bureaucrat. He was one of the bureaucrats. He was in the PMO office. So he's from the Congress era. So obviously in a BJP era he might not find his place or something. But irrespective, and he was amongst the old timers who was actually retiring. But then what they did was, since they didn't have enough, this is a real thing that has happened. Since they didn't have enough bureaucrats in the PMO office, they actually got 3 people from the previous group and who were retiring to come in, and he was one of them. This is Congress. So in the course of having him in the PMO office, what happened was this guy started observing what Modi was all about. He's relentless in his effort. He has so much of passion with respect to what he has to do. He always has this question, what more can we do for India? And he's working round the clock. All the festivals, he calls people. In fact, this bureaucrat happened to work. The reason why he stayed back in the PMO office, because for the first time in his career, he was overworking. He never got a chance to work.
He said it himself. I am working.
Yeah, I'm actually working, and I'm very happy to stay back in the PMO office because I'm actually doing a lot of work now. So he was called on all the festivals. There were Diwali festivals. In fact, he reached home at 11 in the night on Diwali when Modi was sitting there in the office. And the best part is, they used to go home and they used to come back at 8:30, 9 o'clock the next day for Vaccine. But Modi was awake at 5:30, 6 o'clock, and he had another session before he met them. So this is the relentless way he's been working. And then they asked, in fact he himself asked this question to him, telling that, how do you manage this? How do you do this? When first of all, you're working like this round the clock, might actually affect your health, I don't know how you. The other thing is, what kind of motivates you? Because despite so many things told about you, like everybody is speaking negative about you, some or the other thing, all the hard work you're doing is of no consequence to the outside world, because they still talk about politics, they still talk about how bad you are. How are you able to handle this kind of situation? So he says, I have reached a stage of self-actualization. So he's the best example for reaching the stage of self-actualization, because he's not caught up with any of these needs. So be it his personal needs, be it his esteem needs, he has no fiscal issues, he's not working for making money, he's not working for running his family, he's just focused on his country. Probably for him, because of all the decisions he has made in each stage of his life, he's reached the stage much quickly, or he's already reached the stage, so to speak. So it only means that actually there is a saying. So you are in fact, whatever the lives that we are leading is whatever we chose for. So whatever, that famous saying is all about, you are the choice you make. So whatever choice you make, you become that at different stages of your life. If your choice was to become a scientist, you would become that. If your choice was to live happily with your family, you would do that. So all that will lead to this. So you make your choice, you achieve what the choice you made, you reach the stage of self-actualization. You know what you belong for. So in terms of, you will achieve a point where you can actually talk to yourself. Within yourself, you feel that inner peace. There is that inner peace within you that, hey, I don't have to run behind anything. I know what I want and I have achieved that. So I don't want, my car, getting a car is not bothering me, getting a house is not bothering me, because my priorities in life is different. So as long as I've reached those priorities in my life, nothing else bothers me. So getting into that point is very, very important in order to have a very easy way to apply your emotional intelligence.
Regarding this esteem need, sometime back I saw one video in the YouTube where the child actors and actresses, they came up very famous and they were just burned out, and they are all, most of them are drug addicts.
True.
So many things are there, because afterwards they are not able to maintain the.
Absolutely.
Same thing actually, I want to touch the esteem itself.
Sure.
Classic example is the Kingfisher employees.
Yes. Correct.
Don't want to say more than that.
Absolutely, yeah, we all know the story. So, in fact, he hit the nail on the head. Like, there are so many famous personalities. Like, take for example Michael Jackson himself. He's a very famous personality. All of us know what he was capable of, what he was. But he was stuck somewhere. He was stuck with not his esteem needs, here itself, belongingness and love needs. His life history was like that, because he became such a popular guy, and even while he was a kid. So he was increasingly involved, like his family members were involving him, and he was treated like an adult. Like he was doing so many shows. He was so busy. From morning to evening, he was doing shows at a small. So he never had his childhood. He never enjoyed his childhood. He didn't know what childhood is all about. So he used to invite children to his home, to his thing, and then that became a big issue for him. People started accusing him of child molestation. So they started suspecting that this guy has a problem. So that's when he had to come in the open, in the TV, and then confess that I don't have a problem. It is just that my childhood was bad, and I want to enjoy my childhood now. That's why he constructed that, theme park within his house. So those are some of the good examples. We can go on quoting so many examples related to that. Yes, sir. So that's what was all about Maslow's hierarchy. So where am I? So am I stuck in physiological safety, belonging, and self-actualization? Depending on what stage we are in, our personalities vary. So you get an identity to yourself. That's the first level, first stage. So your personality is identified like that. Like when people talk about you, they say, hey, that guy is too greedy, is too materialistic. We say that, right? So even the people who have achieved success would, like for example, Malia was a good example since you picked up. So he had so much of money, he didn't have to do anything, beyond the normal to earn more, but he did that. And today he's in soup. He's in a situation which he brought up to himself. So greed took him to that stage. So somewhere getting stuck will define our personality, which will actually tell a person who was known to be a flamboyant, who was the pride of Karnataka, where everybody looked up to him, he was a great businessman. Even today, he has a huge following despite all the issues that he's having, but he lost all that. He lost beyond that just because he got stuck with some need, that esteemed need. So that's where personalities vary based on that. So a person who nothing affects them, wealth doesn't affect them, something related to relationships, all that is taken care of, is well balanced, everything. So such person, anything that hits him he will not buckle, he will not fall, he'll be able to come back, he'll be able to spring back, he or she will be able to spring back. So that is what we have to set ourselves into before we get into the aspect of applying emotional intelligence. Yes, yeah.
It's more now getting into what we discussed in the spiritual quotient aspect, where you're talking about self-realization, it's self-actualization.
Right.
So basically what you, we conclude is we need to get into a self-actualization where we come to a stage where we give up everything.
No, that's the difference. So that's exactly what I was telling we should not. So it is an example what we should not do. So self-actualization is not a target that we do certain things and we achieve that. It is like we overcome our emotional needs. At each and every point, we overcome certain needs. Like for example, it's not, we need that. We will do that, but we will plan and see to that is taken care of and move ahead.
That comes
We don't
with
get
age, right?
It may come with age, it may also come with maturity. See, there are certain people with age doesn't matter to them. They are very matured even at a young age. For them, certain things don't matter at all. You might have experienced some teenagers. There are differences, right? Teenagers, for them having a bike, riding very thing doesn't matter at all. What matters to them is few things that they would like to do in terms of achieving something in academics, something simple that, and what they will do is because their idea, their goals are very realistic, they plan it very well, they're able to achieve it. People who deviate are the people who think that they want everything in life, they need to do everything. That is, it also depends on maturity levels of individuals. So, very young people are highly matured, very old people can be highly immature as well. So there are both sides of it. Just because somebody is old doesn't mean that they are mature. Maturity of course comes through experience, but having said that, if they are stuck with certain needs which they are not able to resolve themselves, then it becomes a problem for them. It becomes a barrier for anything that they want to do in life. So it's not spiritual.
Depending on where you are, it determines your personality.
Absolutely. So that's the basic premise.
That depends on the factors, external factors, the environment.
Everybody.
The whole ecosystem which determines where you fit in.
Correct.
Exactly. So absolutely, it depends on the factor. But how do you overcome those factors is what defines your personality. So people can, in fact, there are people who have none of these situations, still they are not happy. But there are people who have faced all kinds of bad situations, but they are happy, they are always smiling, because they are able to overcome. So that's the truth of it. So end of the day, yeah, it is to an extent spiritual in terms of inner peace and all that. So that's what Buddha accomplished when he gave up everything. He gave up all materialistic desire to seek that thing, right? So the same situation may not happen with all of us. We cannot become Buddha for that
Interesting
matter.
corollary now. See, Modi left his wife and all.
I know.
He is in,
Nothing to achieve.
Yeah. In a way, like, that was for Modi, it was self-actualization. But for us, we'll have our own self-actualization. So if I ask you, if you say nothing is affecting you, then I say you've reached the stage of self-actualization. Yeah, personality itself is a very hot topic. Like even if you have to discuss about individual personalities, it has so many varied contexts. So, but then to define your own personality, this is a mechanism. So you can figure out where you belong to, where you're stuck, like that. So where do I go from here? Can we just graduate from one level to another? Answering your question, changing personalities, like to another and change personality. The truth is it is not so simple, and there is no permanent brand that we can attain for ourselves. So we cannot brand ourselves. I cannot go and tell, hey, this is what I am. Typically people do. We all have that tendency. It is human tendency to do, hey, I am not materialistic. We declare that, right? I don't believe in wealth. I don't do this. But then that is not for us to tell others. It is for others to tell about us. So we don't have to declare ourselves at all. People will tell you what you are. You just walk around, people will, hey, this guy is this. So you yourself need not create a brand. People will identify you. They will give you an identity based on who you are, what you are. The stage we belong to depends on our current situation. Only when we overcome the situation, we move forward. I spoke about that. If we are unable to overcome the situation, then we are stuck and it reflects our personality traits. So even what we do in our daily lives will actually speak volumes about where you are stuck. I can easily tell. I mean, being an observer, if I'm a very keen human observer in my profession as an HR professional, sitting with one sitting when I'm doing employee counseling, one sitting, I know where this guy is stuck. I know what he has to do to overcome that. So that is my specialty. That's my specialization. I'll be able to identify, because recently there was this example, bank manager. He said his son is totally, introvert. He's not doing anything. He's just sitting. What happened? He flunked in some engineering subject. He's not even working. He's not doing anything. So I want you to talk to him. So I said, okay, fine. I'll talk to him. So on the other day, he and father and son, both of them had come to my home. So father said, I will not speak anything. You speak, because he might feel offended if if he thinks that I'm influencing you. So his thing was, he thought I'm going to give a lecture, a very philosophical, do this, do that. On the other hand, what happened was, I started praising that guy from one level to another. So first thing he said is, I don't have emotional intelligence. Then I asked him a few questions. He responded to that. I said, you have better emotional intelligence than one of the best people that I know. So that he felt like a revelation with that. So each stage, I started giving him certain inputs where he felt encouraged that he is better than what he himself feels he is. He himself was declaring that I have a problem. So I asked him, what is your problem? He said, I have this psychological problem. I do, these are similar to what Bill Gates had and something. I said, no, you don't have any psychological problem. You're perfectly all right. You are intelligent enough. Everything is fine with you. The next day, the transformation that happened was a couple of days. I was talking to, so I asked, how's your son? You know what, the day after you spoke, the next day, first time all his books came out on the table, and I could see him reading, and I could see him engaged, and he started speaking as well, started interacting. So it is just a revelation about their identity. What you are, who you are, where you are stuck, you overcome that, you will realize. So is there a method or mechanism to handle situations? There is no hard and fast rule. I cannot give, there is no prescription, because it's not a psychiatric, I'm not a psychology doctor or a psychiatrist. That is a mental problem. You deal with some brain misconnections. That's different. But here, more of philosophical, psychological, what people emotionally they need is a different problem altogether. So there is no hard and fast rule. So you have to be conscious about your own state and try to overcome that. So if we consistently and religiously believe in these attributes, irrespective of situations, then we take control of that situation. So once we are in control of the situation, we will be able to change and maneuver to overcome it. So what are these situations, what are these aspects? I'll quickly dwell into that, then we'll get into the activity. So first and foremost, I will run through this very quickly, because these are simple aspects which all of you know, believe, and you entrust yourself with these aspects. So honesty and sincerity. Being truthful and honest is the first step towards everything. Because if you have to respect yourself, then you have to find the right path. So there is a right path, there is a wrong path. How many of you, okay, I should not ask this as a general question, but I'm sure, how many of you speak Kannada? What is your, most of you speak Kannada? Yeah. So irrespective, despite not speaking Kannada, have you seen this recent movie called Bodhi Maipanna? Yeah. And this is also, has subtitles in English, and it's becoming very famous. It is now released in UK Film Festival and all. So what was this movie all about? So this movie, yeah, it's a very interesting movie, the way they have portrayed it. There's one dialogue of Anantnag, who's one of the main characters in the movie. So he happened to tell influence actually. This is a very interesting movie for emotional intelligence. Despite having a problem, he has Alzheimer's, despite having this problem, he is able to influence a criminal to change his state of mind. And that influence happens by relating to a very simple story. He tells about there are two types of dogs, there is one black dog and there is one white dog. So depending on the situations of your life, which dog you give the biscuits is which dog you feed actually will actually become your solution for the problem that you're facing. So you have to decide when you feed what you want to pay. So that actually kind of hits the criminal, and he actually overcomes his criminal behavior because of that. So there is between the right and the wrong path, it is very clear. Nobody needs to explain that, nobody needs to justify it, we all know that. So it's just that the choice we make each time when we are put into that situation, are we taking the right path or the wrong path? For example, very simple example. Let's not talk about criminals and all that because none of us are anywhere close to that. Let's talk about simple thing like traffic signal. So how many of us, like for example, there is a situation where there is no traffic and there is a red signal there.
People tend to move.
So the tendency is to, okay, there is nobody there, I will move. But is it right?
No, but I normally stop.
Everybody stops.
We all want to be exceptions, but the general thing is that it does happen. It is human tendency. Like, there are instances that we will definitely move on, especially during late hours, like maybe 10:30, 11 o'clock. So somebody might actually feel like it absolutely makes no sense.
Actually, this is also a cultural city also.
Exactly, yeah.
What somebody does in California, perhaps Bombay has a better culture compared to Bangalore.
Bangalore, yes.
Hyderabad has much worse culture compared to Bangalore.
Correct. That's what we seek from others, we learn from others, but at the same time, when you look at your own personality, because in the psychometric analysis, such questions are asked just to define your personality, just to figure out what you. So, in fact, even a small thing like that, like if you are sincere and you're honest about it, it makes you feel better. Forget about others, forget about anybody else who's watching you or not watching you, the police is watching you. It makes you yourself feel better about saying you will feel that yes, I am a person who follows the rules, and tomorrow you are in a better position to advise others. Because you yourself are following.
No, not always.
Not always.
Sure, sure. I was coming back around 9 o'clock to office. It was in Kodigali. Okay. See the straight line, no? It blinks green. I stopped. Immediately it became red. So I stopped. One girl comes full speed in a bike. Okay, and she comes. I stopped actually. See, normally behind the line. So I stopped, and this girl goes and stops almost. Crossing this line. Yeah. And there were another lady and a baby holding a baby. They were just crossing. Then I said, I opened my glasses and then I asked, see, you could have hit. So there was blinking. I stopped. I was ahead of you. I stopped. What was the problem? Why could you not have stopped earlier? Yeah. And you see, there is a line also, no? Yes. This line you are supposed to actually stop behind this line, and you have crossed that one. That looked at like. What happened? Immediately, though there was red signal, she was.
No, you have understood that. We knew how you crossed the line by your stopping.
He gave me a dirty look. Then what are you asking?
This is one of the problems that youngsters might face when it comes to Maslow's hierarchy of need, where they're stuck at security and safety needs. So they don't really care. So anyway, that was more on the lighter note.
On the other side of it, we really don't know what urgency she was in.
Exactly.
Okay. We
So
can
the-
actually
What urgency you are telling?
Ma'am,
Let's not dwell on that incident. It was just an incident to relate to the topic. Having said that, so why I told you're in a better position is it is your own self-conscience. You'll be that conscience will tell you, yes, I can advise others. So it happened with Mahatma Gandhi once. Like there was a lady who took his child, told that this guy is eating sugar like anything. He never stops. Sweets. Actually.
Jaggery.
Yeah, jaggery actually. He is jaggery like anything, he never stops, and I've tried hell, maybe only if you tell, only if Gandhi Tata says that he will stop. Like if you tell his, so because those days Mahatma Gandhi was known even for children liked Babu. So only Babu. So he actually told the wife to come after 1 week. I'm sorry, told the lady to come after 1 week. So she came after 1 week. After 1 week when she came, he told the child, he advised the child, you should not eat jaggery, it's not good for health and this kind of thing. So the lady asked, so this was not a great solution that you have given. You just, the same thing you could have told a week earlier. Why did you? So he told that I first stopped myself and then now I am advising this. So you need to have that conscience. So it is for your own good. Maybe the other person may not take it well, but still you have done your duty. So that's what we say, right? We have done our due diligence.
Actually, this is a very big topic, this right and wrong.
Yes.
What is right for me is not right.
May not be right for the other person.
So there is no right, absolute right is not there.
Absolute right is not there.
Even for government, you know. In some state there is prohibition.
Yes.
You can't drink anything there.
Yes.
But in the next state, just to go 10 kilometers that way, you can drink as much.
Correct.
So one is sitting here and one is
correct. So what we need to do is we cannot have a general thing about universal opinion about this, but you can have your own opinion about the right and the wrong, and at the same time, like wherever there are extremes, then that is not where we debate on right or wrong, because that's totally gone out of hand. So wherever there is semblance, that's when we can actually discuss and arrive at what is right or wrong. So very simple and straightforward. So being honest, being sincere in whatever you do will be the first step towards achieving that, towards applying your emotional intelligence. So each time, whether it is your job, whether it is at your home, whether you having a discussion between your friends, relatives, peers, if you are sincere in your approach, if you are doing it with all sincerity, then you tend to win. You tend to win irrespective of the opponent. So one good example was also about recent nomination of this head coach for India. Like when Rahul Dravid was approached, so he denied it because he wanted to, he could have easily accepted that because there's a lot of money and a lot of travel, a lot of good things associated with it. He denied because he wanted to train the younger lot. He was more interested in the younger generation. So it is his sincerity towards his job which has kept him where he is, and he is at a higher pedestal than others. So empathy. Empathy is very important for each one of us in the way we look at our situations, not just in terms of the professional life we lead, even in terms of personal life, even in terms of making friends. So your peers can become your best friends if you are able to, if you have the ability to empathize. Let's say if there is a situation where one of your friend has a personal problem and you offer him, like, you will take a leave, I will take care of your job. Where by doing that, what you're doing, you're empathizing in the situation, you're not sympathizing with him. So more often than not, we say, oh really, so sorry man, it shouldn't have happened. Okay, yaar, main chalta hu. And then we might just, it can happen in many situations I've seen, like we all listen and then say, really sorry, I feel so bad for that person. I can also sit, when you're sitting in the bus or sitting there, I really feel so bad for the person. The difference is between sympathizing and empathizing is, when you show empathy, you're actually trying to help in solving that problem for that person. By getting into that problem, you are getting into the shoes of the other person, seeing it from his perspective, and when you put yourself in that situation, you try to arrive at certain solutions, working along with him. Not just telling, oh, I'm really sorry about it. I'm really sorry about it is a very courteous way of doing it, but at the same time, if you don't empathize, that respect, that regard that the other person has with you is completely different. So tomorrow, when you are in that situation, you don't have to ask. It automatically take over. So this will really help in applying your emotional intelligence by having that empathy in your daily life. So simplicity and humility, the more you talk about it, the more we arrive into a situation where these days you can see that it's all about materialistic, well, money and money everywhere it flows. So unless you have a big car, then nobody will call you whatever with whatever position you are in. Like unless you go in a BMW or a thing, then your identity crisis is there. So somebody might not look up to you, and so these kind of things will hamper our own feeling about our growth. Like somewhere down the line, it may satisfy you more materialistically. Like for example, there was this a very senior guy, so who had a big vehicle. I mean, he had like this Toyota Fortuner, so he had bought it recently, and he had enough money to buy that. Then the company came up with a policy wherein the company said we will give cars to all the directors and VPs above, directors above. Now this guy says, hey, I just bought a Fortuner recently, so why don't you make this company car and make it part of the policy? Now we refused. We said no, that's not possible. Said, come on, that's a waste of money for me. So much of money I invested in it. He has enough money to buy what he's already bought it for his own decision, but then still wants this to be taken over the company. Eventually we refused. Then he, what he did? He actually parked that car at home, and he also took the car from the company policy. And then he's started using. Now people kind of relate their success to the material aspects of that success. That's when they're stuck. They don't have the humility, they don't have the simplicity. People tend to, in fact, that same person is not liked by many people in his team. Although he has grown from one stage to another, he is not the most liked person in the organization in terms of his own feedback, his own terms. And irrespective of that, he may not care because he's getting success despite that. So, but then what happens to him eventually is tomorrow he'll feel lonely, like we spoke in the morning. So simplicity and humility works wonders. So there is one example of JRD Tata. So since we spoke of JRD Tata's team, so I was reading about this. So when JRD Tata was about in his 70s and 75 or 80 years of age, he was very old at that time. So he was in Taj Hotel. Taj belongs to Tata. So his sister was actually living in Taj, one of the rooms in Taj, because she was ailing. She had she was not doing well, feeling well. So when he was with his sister, there is the person who attends to them. She came and told, why don't you shift your sister to another room where there is a nice view, there's a sea view and all that. And then I'm sure Taj will not charge for it. Because, yeah. So he got angry, he snapped. He said, what do you mean? Why will Taj do thing? Then he said, Tata does charity, but Tatas don't take charity. So he made that thing, and that girl was like shocked. Oh my God, what did I do? I questioned JRD Tata's integrity or whatever. So she might be. So she was really scared and blown off, and then she was going back home, I guess, on that day. And she happened to see JRD Tata sitting in a car waiting for her. So when she came to see, he stopped and he said, "Please, can I please drop you home? Can I?" She was like, oh my God, what's going to happen next? So she happened to sit in his car. He dropped her home. He said, see, I'm very sorry. I apologize. I snapped. I should not have. Although he did the right thing. He said, but I should not, because I didn't want to spoil your evening today. So just for that sake, a person at that thing, he comes down to his basics, like as a human being, drops her and gives her a good feeling about it. So that's what these people were all about, and their simplicity, their humility, the nature of humility. Today, Tata is one of the most recognized company across the world for its ethical practices, and it's also a $100 billion company. And why it is not so much known amongst all the bigwigs of the thing is for the simple reason that most of the money that Tata earns goes into the trust. There is a huge trust built by Tata, and everything is on charity, and they try to do a lot of things for the country. So it speaks volumes for itself in every aspect of very huge achievers. You can have a lot of examples like this. It keeps coming. It happened with Rusi Modi also once. So he happened to reward a security guard who actually stopped him, whereas his boss felt told him that you will be kicked away. So he actually invited him into his office. So you did your job and he rewarded you. So these kind of stories are there. Having a positive attitude. So this is where I want to give you a very small story. After that, oh my God, I have exceeded my time. So 5. We'll cut it off at 5. So I'll take 5 more minutes. I'll finish this. So having a positive attitude, there is a very nice story, interesting story that I read recently. So it is about a small kid. So there is this small kid who happens to tell his father, I always get angry. All the time I'm hot tempered, I keep getting angry. So his father told, each time you get angry, go to the fence, put a nail, take a hammer and hit it. And then hit it hard so that all your temper goes into the nail. So he kept doing that, and the first day he did it 32 times. So all over the fence there were nails. Then over a period of time, like in a week's time, the number of nails started reducing. And then at one stage he said, no, I'm actually not getting angry anymore, not to that extent. So then his father told, do one thing, now you're not getting, go and pick out all those nails, take it out. So he started doing that. His father actually helped him in overcoming his anger problem. So he started doing that. After he did that, the fence, the way it looked. So his father, what he had done is, he had taken a snap of the fence when it was the way it was earlier. So now he took his son there with the snap. He said, this was a fence that I told you. You have to hit the nail, and this is the fence now. So look at the holes that you have created, and look how bad it looks. So it only means that each time you have that anger thing that you had, you hit a nail, you hurt somebody like that, you actually put a permanent mark into that which will never go. So, and the way that was looked at was in a very positive way. His father is trying to tell how to overcome. So by just looking at that, you can actually feel that my anger is not the right way to move forward. So likewise, there are so many stories. There is also a story about this carpenter who said, he told his owner that enough is enough, I want to go and enjoy my life. I've worked so hard. He was very skilled, highly skilled guy, very good guy. Then the owner feels very sad. He said, okay, fine, you're such a great guy. So just build one last house for me. So before you go. Then after that, he said, okay, fine, owner, since a long time, he builds that house. But in the course of building that house, he does it very badly. Because his mood is all into going and enjoying life, and then all his skills gives away. Then after he builds the house, the owner says, this house is yours. He gives the keys and says, this is. He said, but you didn't tell me about this earlier. Yeah, I didn't tell you, but I'm telling you now, because for all that you did for me over the sink. Then he curses himself, oh my God, if I'd known this was the house I'm going to build, I would have built it the best way I can. So it only means that each time we should never compromise on your own abilities, despite whatever stage you come across in your life. So it is very important to have a positive attitude about it. Whatever is the circumstances, whatever is the situation, don't let go of your own personality, don't let go of your abilities, your skills, all those aspects, irrespective of situations. Last but not the least, living your dreams. Dream, the difference between the dream that you normally get when you sleep and the difference and the dream that you have to dream of is, the dreams that you dream of should be actually vivid in terms of, you have to think that I want to reach the moon. Because there is also a joke about this thing. Like there was this old old lady. So she was actually looking at the moon when Edwin Aldrin and Neil Armstrong landed on the moon. And everybody says, hey, Edwin Aldrin, they landed on the moon. She came out and he said, where? I can't see them. And they have not where. So those were the days where people can't believe that you can go and go to the moon. Today, if you tell somebody you can go to the sun, people will laugh. But it's happening. It's going on. People are trying to do that. So your dream should be like that. Your dream should be that I should do something. So in the course, what you do is you'll work very hard to achieve toward the goal. So you might reach somewhere in between, but still that is far beyond what you would have done otherwise. If you had thought only I'll do this, you would have done somewhere below. So always try to reach out. Always think I'll be a star. Always think I'm the best. Believe in yourself. That belief will come automatically. If you keep telling, if you say, hey, I didn't score in academics, I don't think so I will go anywhere, I don't think so I'll be successful in my life, I didn't go to IIT, I didn't go to some other, I didn't go to Harvard, I can never be. So these are certain bottlenecks you put for yourself. Instead you feel, I am the best, I don't care who's along with me, I am the best, I'll do the best. You keep trying to reach out there, you will achieve that. So that's about the attributes. So there are many other aspects in its own way, like building trust, doing what is right, respect, but don't lose self-respect. That's something I was talking to you about, like, you know, you have to keep your ego in the pocket, and when it comes to self-respect, that's when you take the ego out. So you should never take something which is not right, because that becomes a slavish attitude, and that slavish attitude will actually draw you into a more bad situation. Like, you know, you can't be too humble that you are overridden. So that is a situation that you will create for yourself where you'll only hit pitfalls. So be careful. There's a very thin line of difference between respect. So always respect your co-workers, respect the more respect you give, the more you get. However, do not at any cost lose your self-respect. You have to look up to yourself before you do to others. So work hard, be honest and sincere towards your work to maintain your self-respect and not to please. It may not be just your boss, your peers, or your receipt. Do it for yourself. It will work wonders. And be creative, assertive, and proactive. So these are basic aspects of you know, bringing out that emotional aspect in you. So assertiveness comes from the fact that you are confident. You always walk with your chin up. You don't bend down. You don't. So that is assertiveness. Even in a meeting, in an interview, your first step should be a positive step. It happened with one of this IIM interviewee. So he went into IIM Bangalore. There was a whole panel sitting there. So when he walked into it, he slipped. There was a carpet line. It was not proper. He slipped and he was almost falling. So there's one psychiatrist also who sits in the corner, keep observing about the. So the moment he sat, the first question asked was, you enter into such a prestige and your first step you slipped. You were falling. That was the question. That was a very spontaneous question that asked. And his response was that, yes, I slipped, but I fell in the right place. so that was a, you know, very spontaneous. I mean, he had that presence of mind. So be assertive. If you are assertive, such answers come into your head and you shoot it back to the person who's asking. So, and always be creative. Try to come up with new things. It might fail. It might be the worst. You might feel like, oh, people will laugh at this. I will not move any thing. But if you are creative, it is your own. It is not something that, I mean, you will be known for that just because it came from you. So each time you can chisel the edges. Once you propose something new, people will give you advices, this one, but always depend on something that you want to create. Don't rely on somebody else who will do something and then you'll follow that, or you will be part of that team. Try to create something yourself, and to create something yourself, you need knowledge. So read, understand, build that expertise, and be creative in your approach. And proactive. Proactiveness helps in every stage of your life. Like I'll relate to the Arnav's interview with Modi. So he asked this question that, you know, you've been very proactive, you've been going to all this thing. So do you think all this is going to materialize in a way that, you know, so his response was, I am not proactive because I want, you know, to capture the world, I want to call you and be, because my situation was nobody knew me. So I was neither an MP and, you know, and people only knew me from the perspective of the press. Press has released a lot of things, so I don't know how. So now I went and met them face to face. I shook hands with them, so now they know my personality. They know who I am. So it is very important to use a proactive approach where you don't wait for people to form opinions on you. You create that opinion by actually interacting with that person. Don't hesitate. Whether it's a MD of the organization, whether it is a very senior member of the organization, don't hesitate in gate crashing. Suppose something wrong is being formulated about your opinion, take some time in a right way, approach the person, speak to the person, they will know who you are. So you don't need any support from the others. So that's about it from my side. So I'm sorry I took a little bit of extra time. It was a little bit involving as far as this last topic is concerned. So very quickly I'll read through this and we'll go to the activity and we'll finish it quickly. And I should have warned you that I have this habit of stretching. But anyway, we have 10 minutes, we'll do the activity. So there's a famous saying that we are the choices we make. So whatever choice you make is what you are, you can't complain about it. So tomorrow if somebody happens to point that, hey, you could have been this, you could have been that, you don't have to be worried about it. You should be only worried about what you want it to be and whether you are that or not in your own eyes. If you are not that, then you have to worry. So you have to start planning. Best way is to do planning. So we always have the right to choose despite any external circumstances. There are circumstances like you rightly pointed out, there's always, whenever we are stuck in need because of environment, but then that is there for every one of us. Each one of us face it differently. It can be a different challenge for each one of us. So we should not feel that anybody is absolved of that. Even God may be not absolved of that the way we see in our mythology. So your mind and body is totally yours and no one can take control of it unless you allow anybody to remotely control you. So the moment you give the remote control to others, then you are stuck again. So you should never try to look at yourself from the other's point of view. You look at it from your own point of view. Of course, you can always chisel the edges and take feedback. So you are at your own mercy and not at the mercy of others. The more you are like this, the better you become for others. So more you are confident, more you trust yourself, others will start believing you. And anywhere you go, you meet success, irrespective of the people you work with all these aspects. So your personality defines your success. Because you have that kind of a personality, your success will also follow. So develop a personality which is liked, appreciated and trusted by everyone. So that is something that is universal. So people like you, love you, then that way you are not worried at all in achieving your dreams. So thanks a lot for your patient hearing. So before I conclude, that will be my last sentence, and we'll do a very quick activity. You're already sitting in groups. So I want two members from each group to quickly come here. We'll have 1 minute exercise. We'll finish that, and after that we will conclude. Okay. So maybe first team, which team will come? Two members. So, can I get 2 chairs? One more. So you have to sit opposite, looking at each other. You and me.
Looking in the eyes, sir.
So this is a role play. So this is a role play where it is about yeah, you can switch off.
Shall I off it?
Yeah, you can switch off.
That doesn't do
So role play where this is a performance appraisal discussion. So who wants to be the manager? You want to be the manager, or you want to be the manager? I think you should be the manager. She's the manager. She's the manager, and he is the engineer. He is reporting to you. Now the situation is that he has done very well, exceptionally well in his thing, but then he has not got the right performance appraisal. So maybe out of 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5, he got a 3, whereas he was expecting a 1 or 2 because he actually dedicated himself, he worked very hard, he worked beyond any limits. But despite that, this is the situation. Now both of you are having, so you first give him the feedback and then you can question on how you feel within yourself in terms of what you have done. So you have done exceptionally well, but feedback is not going to be great. So go on. So we'll take just 1 minute and then at some point I will stop, I'll tell you why. Yeah. So go on. So you can introduce yourself, you can start off like that. So maybe manager can start. You know his name, right? So you can, yeah, so you just say hi, how are you?
In fact, they both are from the same department, they're police actually.
Oh, don't fight. So, okay, carry on. Start.
Hi, Sandesh.
You should be loud so that everybody can hear. Go on, go on. Don't feel sad. Don't. This entire room is not there.
So can you please explain the scenario again?
Yeah, scenario is like this is a performance appraisal. You are the manager.
I think they are not even gone through the first appraisal.
That's okay. That's okay.
I don't know what questions
No
what
problem.
questions to ask.
No problem. That's the beauty of it now.
So now you will say, why did you give less marks? You have to say, you have to justify. That's what.
Yeah, you are the manager. You are going to tell this performance appraisal. He's not got a good appraisal. He's got, because there is a scale of 1 to 5. So 1 is the best, 2 is second best, 3 is good but not the best, and then 4 or 5. So he's got a 3, and you have he's actually very sad that he got a 3. But then he'll know only after you tell. So you don't know as yet. So you just give him his performance feedback. Then he will ask certain questions. So you know what questions to ask because you work very hard, everything. So you can ask in your own way. Go on.
Actually, I wanted to give you 5 rating. Why I gave you 3?
Okay, one second. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1 is best.
Actually, our thing 5 is best.
Reversing that so that the audience is at the same
No. What
That
she
is-
was correct. She wanted to
5
give
is
5 but
best.
gave 3. Even then the other person is not there.
Okay, it's her way of putting it across. Fine, you can put it the way you want. Sorry about that.
I gave it 1. I wanted to give the rating as 1, but I gave you 3 is because there is always a room for improvement. I thought that, like, since this is the first appraisal for you, I thought that maybe you might stop. Like, if the rating was very high, you might think that yes, I am good now. I'm doing the best, and I thought that you might stop in that stage. I wanted you to get updated with more technical skills and come up with new things. That's the reason I gave the rating as 3.
Please don't
Okay, one request from the audience, please don't prompt and please don't react because this is a complete role play, they are isolated. Because if you prompt and react, then it will influence.
Sorry, some recording also.
Yeah. So please don't prompt and please don't react.
Yeah, thank you for your review, but I'm expecting more as I did photo forward. That's okay, but I wanted to ask you, like, are you happy with my performance? Are you still expecting more than I want lot of improvement?
Of course, I'm happy with your performance, but from the organization point of view, I want you to come up with more new skills so that we can give our best as a team. We can give our best to the organization.
Yeah, can you
Which will
suggest?
help both of us to grow in this organization in a better way.
Yeah, can you suggest me the ways in which I have to improve?
Maybe like
I'm open for improvement.
okay, that's good.
Then I need some suggestions in which area I have to improve.
Like whatever, like whenever the new technologies is released, whatever that kind of thing happens, I want you to get like updated with those things. Like
That's okay. Carry on.
Yeah, sure, I'll update. I'll take your point. And
in any case, if you need my help, yes, I'll be there for you on the day.
Yeah,
My
that's
support will always be there.
That's it. Thank you. Thank you. Well done. So this is an exact role play that I was looking at. So, in fact, it started, maybe because it was a lady member, it was much mellowed down. So, the next thing I'll do is I'll put two very argumentative people. So, the whole idea was I wanted to see how the reaction, all of us to see how the reaction of the engineer is. So, obviously, when I told him that you are really hurt, you're deeply hurt, so my expectation was that he will fight it out. And eventually he will actually come up with this response, what he did very quickly, that okay, now tell me what are my improvements, rather than being cynical that no, I am the way, I know I've done this thing. So you actually converge. So you're not going like in the parallel track. So both manager and engineer have converged and they've resolved that situation. They've actually, otherwise what happens is if they had not resolved, they've gone in parallel tracks, each one telling the same thing, then they would never see eye to eye after they go out of the meeting. They'll always have this constant conflict. So by converging, by what he did, he converged. So tomorrow he still can face up with the manager and they can work on something. Or probably there will be a realization from the manager that, hey, maybe, yeah, this guy has done. So what I would have expected from him is telling all the things that he has done. You still feel, despite this, I should get this. So probably the manager will go back and see like, hey, did I miss out on something? So that is influencing. So how you could. So anyway, good job. I'll give a different scenario now. So let's have two guys in any of the team because.
You're already ready. Sure. You can go up to the chair.
Second team, yeah. Yes. So this is over a phone call. Okay. So you're the manager. Sorry, I'm sorry. Can I have your name? Puneet. Arun. Puneet is the manager. So there is a situation where same thing what I had told earlier. There's a problem which he has created because it was his code and there was some problem in that code and only he can solve. Whereas in your situation, you are in a very bad situation where there is this problem that you have to attend to. So somebody is not feeling well. At the same time, you have to go to a far off place and get some medicines or something, blood or whatever. You have to reach the hospital in time and sort that out. And your manager he's calling you. This is over a telephone. Be very aggressive in your tone, as aggressive as possible. And you should handle that situation. Let's see what you guys. So take liberty on. If you have any grudge against him, go on.
You can hold on to your phones if you want.
Yeah. Say hello. Start with the
action.
So no prompting by the audience, and please don't make them conscious also. You can start. Don't actually dial this. You can start this. Hello, Arun. How are you? What's going on? You can start. Say hello.
Yeah. I'm speaking to Arun. Yes, sir. Actually, I got a call from customer saying that there's some slippage at the works. Okay. So some code which is done by you. So I want you to sort out as soon as possible because it's very urgent for the customer. So can you make it for office as soon as possible?
Yes, sure, sir. The code was done by me, but right now I'm out of station because I have a personal emergency. One of my relatives is suffering from health problems, so I need to go out of station for his emergency. So once I will be back off the, I will sort of the work which has been faced today.
No, I'm telling you that it's very urgency because customer is scolding us. So can you please make it to office by handing it to someone else?
Yeah, in such case, well, because as I need to have my presence today, can I please extend my presence in the office which I have to work on that particular code. I'll be coming delay by half a time. Just I need to have the time to presence.
No, Arun, I'm really sorry. You have to make the office because it's very urgent.
So in that case, I will wait least for a couple of hours I need to have a time somewhere because it is an emergency case. Health matters for my relatives and my presence is more important than the customer that I have. I will completely do the work which we have assigned for me. But more than that, we should have one couple of hours to complete.
You cannot delegate around. You have to. You cannot delegate around. You have to be in office because it's a code done by you, and you cannot tell the reason for customer, as you said to me.
So, in such case, could you please make my presence delayed because not in the couple of hours, but I will be present. For sure, I will be having my presence in the office and I will do the work what you have assigned. But I have to do the same work which I have to supposed to do the operations for my relatives. Could you please do that? This small thing which I am impression. And I am sure that I will complete the code which I have.
So how much time does it take for you to do?
It's not exactly more than I will be even as soon as that I complete the work, I will be present in the office.
Okay. Good one. So I think you played your roles very well. So the manager, as a manager, was very aggressive, and he was trying to pacify his manager, trying to influence to the best of his ability. So slight changeover. So I will sit here. You can be more aggressive. So then let's see how to influence and handle it. Yeah.
Hello.
Hello, sir.
I'm speaking to Nitin.
Yes, sir.
I got a call from customer saying that there's a small slippage of works in your code, and can you make to office as soon as possible so that that issue will be clear, because I got a call from customer and it's very urgency.
Oh, really? Of course, I'm so sorry to hear that. What happened, sir? Can you please tell me what was the problem? Go on.
That was like they are not able to open the application itself.
Okay. So, was it with my code, sir? Are you sure about that? Does it have any other problem associated with it?
As far as I know, it was your code, and there's a problem in your code.
Oh, I'm so sorry about it. I think I should be able to do it, sir, but would you mind if you can give me some time, because I'm in a very bad situation now. So the fact is that, you know, my mother is admitted to hospital and I have to immediately rush to get some blood. I will do that, and I know this problem is really bad and I should come here and solve that. And I will ensure, I'll promise you that I'll be there on time, to whatever best time possible. What is the time limit that I have, sir?
Max 2 hours, within 2 hours you should be in office.
2 hours. Can you just extend it by just about 15 to 30 minutes? It might, I might get stuck in traffic. So, is there an extension possible? But definitely I will start on time.
Okay.
Thank you. So, it's just a simple gesture of concern. Like, you know, of course you could have, you have a situation in hand, but then you first divert your attention to what the problem there is, and then you are already influencing. Now the manager feels, okay, this guy knows this is his problem and he's trying. So it helps in actually putting the ball in the other court. So that is what the whole idea was. So whenever you have to apply your emotional intelligence, so it is very important that you know how to put the ball in the other court. Because see, when it is in your court, you can't just leave it like that, right? Then you are the loser because you missed the ball. So you need to place it in such a way that you are also waiting for the response from the, and place it in a very nice way, in a very nice position, so that you also get the right response. So always try to put the ball in the other court and find out how to handle it. So then it becomes a very smooth interaction. So thanks a lot. Thanks for both of you. So I guess these were two very prominent scenarios, and because of lack of time, we'll stop here. So let's not go on with it. So I hope this helped you in understanding what we are dealing with. So hope this was a good session for you in terms of at least understanding why we have to do the way we do things. So just to conclude, first of all, thank you to all of you, especially the senior members. I'm really delighted that you stayed throughout the session and you were you're here. I'm sure you know much better than I could ever know about these aspects, and you have faced it day in and day out. And of course, for the youngsters who are so enthusiastic, who are very curious about knowing what these aspects are, I could see it in your face. So I'm sure you'll all be stars of tomorrow. So all that you need to do is dwell upon these aspects. So to conclude, one thing I would like to, before we start the distribution, just a conclusion. Just to conclude, one thing I want to impress upon, this whole session will be futile if we feel that the situation, the circumstances, the environment that we live in is controllable. It is not controllable. It is not in any of our hands. So every day is a new day. Every day the situation changes. So the more you accept that fact, the more you accept the fact that things are going to change. It's not going to be the same, irrespective of the situation you are in. You might be in a very good situation today, or you might be in a very bad situation today. Even if you are doing your best, expect the worst the next day. Then you have that positive approach towards life. So if you are doing worse, don't think the next day is going to be as worse. So always, whenever the situation goes wrong, you have to handle the situation before you handle yourself. Because more often than not, what we feel is situation is overpowering you. If you ensure that you overpower the situation, you come in control of the situation, that's when your emotional intelligence will start working. If you allow the situation to overcome you, you allow the situation to handle you, so that's when you miss out on opportunities, you will miss out on ideas, you will not know which way to turn to. So don't let any situations overpower you. And how you can do that? You can do that by following all the principles of patience, perseverance, having a positive attitude, not letting things pass by you, and having that sense of absorption. So be assertive in your actions, be articulate. So all these aspects will only make your personality better. Each day you are looking at things in a different way. You're not looking at things to be the same. So we can't expect things to be the way we want to. We have to create a situation where we align the situation the way we want to. So whenever we are passing through a path, like always remember that you are in a journey. So it's like driving a car. So when you're driving a car, you have multiple options. To reach a destination, there are many routes. So you will always try and pick up the shortest route possible. But the shortest route can also be the longest way to reach the goal. So look at it in terms of obstacles and expect obstacles. Expect certain, so whenever you encounter an obstacle, figure out a way to how you maneuver the obstacle rather than changing your route. So if you change your route, again you meet multiple obstacles, and that much time it takes for you to reach the goal. So whenever you meet an obstacle, don't get don't get hit by it. Don't feel like that is not going to make you progress in your path. So you have to ensure that you figure out a way, and the best way to do that is by planning. So whenever you encounter a situation of crisis, start planning. Don't get caught up with that. Don't get worried. If you start planning, you go back, clean the slate. Just like we do with the system. That's when I told, like, you have to flush out everything. Clean the slate, just we do with our computers. When something goes drastically wrong, we just reboot it, right? We shut down and we get it back again, it works perfectly fine. So there was no real problem, there was no great danger of this thing. It was just that there were too many things, there were too many complex instructions that was given. Same way our mind works, our situation works. There were too many complex things trying to get interconnected. So what you have to do is you have to step back, you have to flush out everything, start on a clean slate. Start from step 1 and then reapproach that entire journey. So this is going to achieve whatever you want in terms of your successes. I have personally experienced this in a company, in a very complex organization like Samsung. Typically it takes 14 years to reach the leadership level that I could reach in the organization. But despite all this, just by the virtue of implementing emotional intelligence, I was able to handle many situations, and I could achieve that in half of that time, in 7 years. So it works for all of us, and despite the complexity of the organization. Why I tell in context of Samsung, in terms of context of a Korean company, it is that much difficult to understand itself, the culture there. So it takes about 3 to 4 years for people to adapt. The easier and the faster you adapt, the faster you grow in the organization. So thank you so much for your patient hearing. All the best to all of you. So do well in your careers. Thank you.
I have another question.
Yes. So the survey, in fact, I have to do the analysis. So I will go back home and do the analysis. I'll send you the result of it. I'll send it through mail to Mr. Animesh. He can distribute it. So you will know the trend, and you can actually, we can figure out. I will discuss with Mr. Animesh, I'll discuss with the MD sir, and we'll figure out what is the best way to come up with certain activities which can help in overcoming that.
I have one
Sure.
question. I'll say most of the things what we discussed today, it is really good. And in fact, most of us are, we know some or other way, but we don't implement it.
Right.
Okay. So now what happens, this session is really good. So after this, 1 week I will forget.
Okay.
And it will run it.
Yeah, I
so
know.
to repeat it sometime or other.
Sure.
Okay, we need good source.
Sure.
Okay, so that we will follow, okay.
Sure.
Again, it will come to our mind to follow something.
Sure.
So can you refer good, source?
Sure.
Or your, whatever.
book,
Yeah, that's whatever he
So,
can refer, because he has
absolutely.
gone through
So,
lot.
exactly. There are two aspects to it. So one thing is you can actually read my book. It's a very simple. It's just about 50 to 60 pages. You can read it in one. So one sitting you can read it. It's about 2.5 hours of read. So it has all these aspects of that I'm talking about. And in fact, it is in print, and you can order it through Flipkart, Amazon, Barnes and Nobles. It is published by Penguin Group of Publications, Partridge. So irrespective, despite that, I'm going to share my email ID and my phone number, all my contact details. So I'll be relocating soon to overseas. Despite that, I will leave all my contact details with Mr. Animesh. So please feel free to call me. I love talking to people. Okay, so don't worry. Whenever you feel any situation that you encounter, you need some support, some help, just call me. And I don't charge for that. So it's not about earning some money out of it. It's about my passion towards it. So if you feel that you encounter such a situation and you need some support, you need some guidance, you need some inputs in that direction, just feel free to call me or even send me an email. So it is like a doctor or a lawyer needs practice. So now that I'm on my own, I'm practicing, I also need practice. So I will help you people in counseling, I will help you in overcoming your situations.
Thank you.
So I will write my contact details here. So, or I can share it through email.
Yeah,
I can share. I have some cards, so if you can, I can shoot this.
Fine, I think I can pass them.
I'll pass. Some few cards I have. You can pass on the